Chapter 532. Jingmen Island's Sheraton Hotel was located in the downtown area where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold. It occupied a large area and the entire hotel building was particularly stylish. Every year, tourists from all over the country would choose this hotel as their first choice, so the price was naturally very high. On the surface, the Ouyang family was the most powerful family in Jingmen Island. Whether it was their business network or social circle, no other family could compare with them. Therefore, nearly all the big shots in Jingmen Island were invited to the charity party hosted by the Ouyang family. Even the dignitaries from outside were lucky enough to receive an invitation. At around 5 o'clock in the evening, luxury cars drove into the Sheraton Hotel. As the cars stopped at the entrance of the hotel building, well-dressed dignitaries walked into the hotel lobby under Ouyang Lei's warm greeting. As it was approaching 6 p.m., Ouyang Lei raised his wrist and looked at the time on his watch. He then turned to look at his subordinate and asked, "How many people have yet to arrive according to the invitation we sent out?" "More than a dozen." The refined middle-aged man replied in a low voice. Ouyang Lei squinted his eyes. When he saw another expensive luxury car coming and stopping in front of him, he quickly glanced at it and found that it was also an acquaintance, so he quickly greeted him. After greeting him with a smile and entering the hotel lobby, an ordinary off-road vehicle stopped next to him. Ouyang Lei's expression moved. He immediately looked pleasantly surprised when he saw Gu Xiaoxue coming out of the car. However, before he could step in front of Gu Xiaoxue, Tan Xiu's figure appeared on the other side of the car's door. "Oh, why are you here, brother-in-law?" Ouyang Lei directly gave up on greeting Gu Xiaoxue and strode toward Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu rolled his eyes. He looked at the pleasantly surprised Ouyang Lei and snappily said, "Can't you change the way you address me? Even if you don't care about me, shouldn't you think about your younger sister? She hasn't found a husband yet, so calling me like that will damage her reputation." Ouyang Lei stared blankly for a moment. He immediately patted his forehead and smilingly said, "Yeah, you're right. My younger sister hasn't married yet, so you can't be considered as my brother-in-law. Then, a future brother-in-law should be correct, right?" Tan Xiu glanced at Yang Lu, who got out of the driver's seat, and said, "Remember this guy's appearance. I'll give you one night. Tomorrow, I'll make him run to me and beg me." Yang Lu looked at Ouyang Lei with a strange expression. He then nodded with a smile and said, "No problem. I guarantee that I'll complete the task." "What do you mean?" Ouyang Lei was confused. "And this is?" Tan Xiu faintly smiled and said, "I won't introduce you to each other for the time being. You'll get to know him again tomorrow. Besides, I'm here to attend the charity gala today. As the host, shouldn't you invite me in warmly?" Ouyang Lei laughed heartily and said, "You don't need to invite me. You don't need to pretend to be polite at all. This is a charity gala hosted by our family. You can enter however you want." Calculating the time, almost all the people who were supposed to come had arrived. I didn't need to waste my time outside. "Come on, let's go in together." After entering the hotel lobby, everyone took the elevator to the 26th floor. As they were about to enter the banquet hall, Tan Xiu casually asked, "I heard that you also invited the Yao family. Have they come?" Ouyang Lei stared blankly for a moment before he suddenly realized something and quickly said, "Don't mess around today, my future brother-in-law. I know that your Tang family and the Yao family have some friction, but all the bigwigs in Jingmen Island have come today. It will be hard for our Ouyang family to deal with if something happens." "I won't attack unless I'm attacked," Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. Ouyang Lei nodded without a word and said, "Yao Xinhua has arrived, along with several people he brought. They should be inside now." Tan Xiu didn't speak again. After entering the banquet hall with Ouyang Lei, he found that there were hundreds of people inside. Fortunately, the banquet hall was very large and could accommodate thousands of people, so it didn't seem crowded. Under the soft illumination of the crystal lamps, tables of wine and delicacies could be seen everywhere. Groups of 3 to 5 successful people gathered together and chatted about various topics. "Ouyang Lei, what's your Ouyang family's purpose in making such a big scene today?" "To put it bluntly, it's a charity donation," said Ouyang Lei with a smile. "Almost every year, our Ouyang family would organize such an event. However, it seems to have changed its flavor along with the charity banquet. It has become a grand event for those business elites, dignitaries, and dignitaries to communicate in private. Nowadays, every successful person in Jingmen Island will be proud to receive an invitation from my Ouyang family. Tan Xiao suddenly understood. He recalled that the Ouyang family could become the #1 family in Jingmen Island. He believed that they had many means to accumulate connections, and tonight's charity banquet was probably just one of them. Alright, you're the host, so you don't have to accompany me here. We'll have plenty of time to communicate later, said Tan Xiao. Ouyang Lei nodded with a smile. As the future successor of the Ouyang family, he indeed had to be busy with social engagements. If he were to accompany Tan Xiao here, it would be somewhat inexcusable to the other guests. Following his departure, Gu Xiaoxue, who had been following beside Tan Xiao, attracted a lot of attention. She leaned toward Tan Xiao and whispered, "Grandmaster, at 2 o'clock, there's a young man in a white suit with slicked back hair. He's the outstanding talent of the Yao family's new generation, Yao Xinhua." Tan Xiao looked over and saw the handsome and tall Yao Xinhua, who was holding a glass of red wine and chatting with several successful middle-aged men. As if sensing that someone was looking at him, Yao Xinhua glanced around a few times before his eyes finally met with Tan Xiao's. Tan Xiao let out a faint smile and turned toward the rest area in the corner. Today was the first time he saw Yao Xinhua. He had a good head and a good brain. Furthermore, Tan Xiao could see that Yao Xinhua's skill should be good as well. Although this kind of opponent was extremely terrifying to many people, it was nothing to him. Perhaps only the arrival of the Yao family's old patriarch could attract Tan Xiao's attention. At 2 o'clock. After seeing Tan Xiao, Yao Xinhua's eyes turned a lot more solemn. A chilling light burst out from his eyes as a dense killing intent gushed out from his heart. When he first fought with the Tang family in the south, the Tang family was utterly defeated. He was in high spirits and was ready to make persistent efforts to make the Tang family suffer heavy losses and completely lose the 2 provinces in the south. But then, the battle situation suddenly changed. The Tang family's series of means caught him off guard and caught him off guard. The result was very miserable. His Yao family and his friendly family suffered heavy losses, and he was forced to retreat again and again. Finally, all the achievements he had achieved were in vain, and he was forced to return to the imperial capital with his tail between his legs. At that time, he was very aggrieved, because he didn't even know who the real enemy was. It was not until later, through various channels of investigation, that he found out that it was the Tang family's long-lost descendant named Tan Xiao who took over the battle in the south and beat him so miserably. Therefore, he also regarded Tan Xiao as a lifelong enemy. Even now, he was always ready and looking forward to playing with Tan Xiao in the future to wash away the humiliation he had suffered. However, when he suddenly saw Tan Xiao's figure, even though he was always ready, his heart still tightened. Why is he here? Yao Xinhua's mind was calm and he was not affected by the killing intent. Countless thoughts churned in his mind as he silently thought about the purpose of Tan Xiao's visit. It stood to reason that Tan Xiao should be in Shanghai now, being a good student at Shanghai University. Could it be because of the Yao family's plan to rent an island in the South China Sea? As Yao Xinhua thought of this issue, his heartstrings suddenly tightened and a vigilant look appeared in his eyes. It must be noted that the Yao family's plan this time was very big and very important. If it could be completed, the Yao family would continue to grow in the next few years, and their armed forces would advance by leaps and bounds. As long as the plan went smoothly, the Yao family would be able to stand proudly in the entire imperial capital and become the most powerful family in a few years. Excuse me. Yao Xinhua maintained a smile on his face as he spoke to the people around him. Then he walked to the side with the red wine. After coming to the corner, he took out his mobile and dialed a cell number. "Dad, it's me," Yao Xinhua said in a low voice. "What's the matter?" A dignified voice came from the phone. "Dad, I met Tan Xiao in Jingmen Island in the charity party organized by the Ouyang family," said Yao Xinhua. "I suspect that his sudden appearance in Jingmen Island is inseparable from the upcoming plan of our Yao family." "Tan Xiao? Which Tan Xiao?" asked Yao Chengqing doubtfully. "The Tang family, Tan Xiu, said Yao Xinhua. Yao Chengqing was silent for a moment. Suddenly, he seemed to recall something and asked in a deep voice, "Is it Tan Xiu who once fought with you in the 2 southern provinces? The little fella of the Tang family who was lost for 20 years? That's right," said Yao Xinhua. Yao Chengqing was silent for a moment before he coldly said, "Our Yao family's plan must not go wrong. Although you're just a smokescreen in the open, it's best to avoid trouble. Since the Tang family's people have appeared in Jingmen Island, it means that the Tang family has already been aware of the situation. So, find an opportunity to meet this Tan Xiu. If possible, try to make him stay in Jingmen Island forever." Yao Xinhua's expression moved as he nodded and said, "I understand, Dad. I'll do it quietly so that he won't be able to return alive." "Don't take it lightly," said Yao Chengqing. "You're in the open and he's in the dark, so your own safety is the first priority. If it doesn't work out, take your people back. I believe your second uncle will do it secretly." "Don't worry. I know what I'm doing," said Yao Xinhua. "I won't act rashly if I'm not 100% sure. I'll immediately retreat if there's even the slightest sign of trouble." Chapter 5:33. Yao Xinhua hung up the phone and waved to a nearby middle-aged man. After the middle-aged man came to his side, he whispered, "Move the first and second teams here and hide in the vicinity of the Sheraton Hotel. Also, tell the gunman to go to the opposite building and wait for my order." "Understood," the middle-aged man replied and left with a cautious expression. A cold light flashed in Yao Xinhua's eyes as he took out a cigarette from his pocket. But after recalling the current situation, he stuffed the cigarette back into his pocket. However, his eyes passed through the gaps in the crowd and looked at Tan Xiu, who was sitting in a remote corner. At this moment, Tan Xiu crossed his legs and quietly sat on the sofa in the corner of the banquet hall. His eyes wandered back and forth between the smiling guests. He was very disgusted with this kind of banquet. After all, it was too impure and boring to hold it under the banner of charity with ulterior motives. However, he also understood these people. After all, they were all mortals, and it was common knowledge among cultivators that mortals did their own things. If they wanted to make a living in society, they had to deal with thousands of connections. They had to seize every opportunity to make friends with people who could bring them benefits. Only then would they be able to open up a better career and have more wealth in the future. "What? You don't like it?" A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he looked at Gu Xiaoxue, who was sitting in front of him. "I really don't like it." Gu Xiaoxue gently nodded and frowned. "You're the one who wanted to come with me. Don't force yourself if you really don't like it." Tan Xiu smiled. "Let's go back. Also, tell someone to prepare the boat. We'll set sail after the charity party is over." Gu Xiaoxue hesitated for a moment before she silently got up and said, "Then I'll wait for you on the boat." Yang Lu, who was sitting next to Tan Xiu, looked at Gu Xiaoxue's back as she left. His tense expression finally relaxed a lot. The scene of him being hung in the corridor had filled him with fear toward Gu Xiaoxue, so he felt uncomfortable even if Gu Xiaoxue was next to him. Yang Lu secretly breathed a sigh of relief and forced a smile. "Brother Tan Xiu, I'm really curious. How come you have such a grand disciple?" Tan Xiu smiled faintly and said, "Isn't it good? Xiaoxue is a well-behaved child. Not bad." "Obedient?" Yang Lu almost spat out a mouthful of blood, secretly cursing in his heart. "She is good to you, respectful, like she is treating her own ancestor, but to me, I know what you're thinking. As long as you don't take the initiative to provoke her, she won't mess with you," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "I know you like women, but don't provoke women you don't know, or you'll get into big trouble in the future." Yang Lu deeply agreed and said, "You're right, every word is true. In the future, I must be vigilant when dealing with women. Haven't you heard of the saying, 'A woman's heart is the most poisonous of all'?" Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "Don't be so extreme. Forget it, let's not talk about these boring things. I'll give you one night to do what you need to do. I hope that Ouyang Lei will be restless before we return from Clam Island." Yang Lu crooked his finger and smilingly said, "Brother Tan Xiu, as the saying goes, even blood brothers should settle accounts clearly. How are you going to thank me if I help you tonight? I originally intended to give you a small opportunity, said Tan Xiu with a smile. If I'm satisfied with what you do, I'll give you a big one. 10 times. As long as you do well, your strength will increase by at least 10 times in the future. Deal. Yang Lu excitedly got up and spoke again. A gentleman keeps his word. Then I'm going to investigate Ouyang Lei's background now. Just wait for my good news. Go. Tan Xiu said with a smile. Stay in the everlasting feast hall before I come back from the sea. Also, help me investigate the Yao family here while you're at it. All right. Yang Lu replied and quickly left the banquet hall. The charity gala began at 6 o'clock. As the host, Ouyang Lei gave a speech with great emotion. Then he invited his father, Ouyang Wenjin, to the stage and gave a speech. It was Tan Xiu's first time seeing Ouyang Wenjin. He was a very dignified and imposing man with every gesture exuding the demeanor of a big shot. Tan Xiu recalled Ouyang Lulu's request to let him follow her to the Ouyang family as a guest. Although he had promised it, he had never fulfilled it. In fact, it was not that he wanted to break his promise, but he didn't want to complicate his relationship with Ouyang Lulu. The charity gala progressed quickly, and the items auctioned in the following charity auction were not expensive. None of them caught Tan Xiu's eyes. Therefore, he didn't spend money to buy anything and just regarded himself as a bystander. He quietly stayed in the most inconspicuous corner and observed Yao Xinhua's actions from time to time. After the charity auction ended, some people bought things they liked, while some spent money to show goodwill to the Ouyang family. In short, the charity auction was a success. You're Tan Xiu, right? At the beginning of the banquet, Yao Xinhua finally appeared in front of Tan Xiu with a glass of red wine in his hand. Tan Xiu was still sitting on the sofa with his legs crossed. He looked up and casually glanced at Yao Xinhua. A faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth as he said, "It turns out to be a loser. I really didn't expect that you would dare to appear in front of me. Aren't you afraid that I'll personally cut off your head and make it into a chamber pot for me?" Yao Xinhua sneered. He turned around and sat on the sofa opposite Tan Xiu. He gently sipped the red wine and then lightly said, "There's an old saying that victory and defeat are common in a war. Who can laugh at the end is really an unpredictable chess game. I'm looking forward to what kind of performance you'll have in the future. I'll have a lot of good performances, but I'm afraid only a few of them will qualify you to participate in." Tan Xiu said with a smile. "You may not like to hear it, but perhaps only your family's patriarch can make me look at the entire Yao family. As for the others..." Yao Xinhua gave a thumbs up. He didn't get angry out of shame because of the contempt in Tan Xiu's words. On the contrary, a bright smile appeared on his handsome face. "I know. I've been looking forward to the Tang family ever since I came back from abroad. I'm looking forward to them giving me some pressure and motivation. But your Tang family's people are too weak, so weak that I don't even have the mood to play. Fortunately, you appeared. I'm glad that the Tang family was able to find you. Otherwise, even if the Tang family were to be destroyed in the future, I would still feel bored." Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "That's great. You're full of arrogance, and your blood is full of self-confidence. It's a pity that I've made such an outstanding opponent fear me so early on. If I had known it earlier, I wouldn't have used such a rough method to deal with you in Fukong. Maybe I could have played better and obtained more gains if I was gentle." Tan Xiu, a man who can't let go of the past, is not a real man. Yao Xinhua sneered. "How about we make a bet if you want?" "Say it." Tan Xiu shrugged his shoulders. "How do you want to play?" Yao Xinhua said, "Let's bet. Who will leave the hotel standing tonight? Who will leave the hotel lying down? Do you dare to bet with me?" "What's the bet?" Tan Xiu said with a smile. "I'll give you the choice." Yao Xinhua spread his hands. "All right." Tan Xiu said with a light smile. "I'll be a bit vulgar today. The bet is money. I've been very poor recently, so poor that I can't even eat in the school cafeteria. How about 1 billion renminbi? That's a small bet." Yao Xinhua sneered. "If you say 1 billion, then 1 billion. I don't like to always make myself look rich and overbearing." The two men talked, their words full of the smell of gunpowder. Now, they were carrying out psychological tactics, wanting to use words to strike the other's psyche. Unfortunately, Ling Ren was a person with a tenacious mind, so verbal attacks would not have much of an effect on them. Give me your cell number. Tan Xiu took out his mobile phone and crooked his finger. Do you need to ask me personally if you want to know my cell number? Yao Xinhua said with a faint smile. Wouldn't the Tang family's people be eager to put my number in front of you? I don't like troublesome things, Tan Xiu said. You're the same as me. I'm also a person who hates troublesome things. Yao Xinhua nodded. Having said that, he gave his cell number to Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu quickly wrote a short message and sent his name and a bank account number to Yao Xinhua. Then he stood up and smilingly said, I've sent my bank account number to your mobile phone. Remember to transfer the money to my account early tomorrow. You're that confident? Yao Xinhua sneered. Tan Xiu maintained his smile as he nodded and said, I'm very confident. You'll know it later. The next moment, Tan Xiu's figure instantly appeared in front of Yao Xinhua. His speed was so fast that even though Yao Xinhua was not an ordinary person, he still couldn't detect Tan Xiu's movement. His body quickly turned numb, followed by blackness before he lost consciousness. Tan Xiu's figure flickered and silently disappeared from the banquet hall without anyone noticing. His purpose of coming here today had been achieved, so he didn't bother to stay here and waste time. He didn't kill Yao Xinhua because he was still thinking about the 1 billion gambling money. He was more concerned about eradicating some of the Yao family's forces by abusing Yao Xinhua later. The moment he stepped out of the hotel's entrance, a cold light burst out from Tan Xiu's eyes. He could keenly sense that there seemed to be countless pairs of eyes staring at him from all around. A faint sense of crisis even appeared in his heart, causing him to instantly release his spiritual sense. 15 people, all armed with firearms. However, it's not them who gave me a sense of threat, but someone else. It should be someone hiding in the dark. Only someone hiding in the dark can give me such a feeling. Chapter 5:34. Had it been in the past, Tan Xiu's first reaction would have been to dodge and find a solid bunker. But now, he didn't care about the sniper bullets at all. Although he felt threatened, he could still face it calmly. Even if the other party fired, he was 100% confident that he could dodge it. Even if he had to resist, he believed that the bullets couldn't penetrate his skin and cause him any harm. Such confidence, it was brought about by the surge in his cultivation. After experiencing the inheritance in the ancient tomb, his strength had soared by more than 100 times. Even the current Xiaomingzhen and Miao Wenong would be surpassed by him. Those who point their muzzles at me must die. Tang Xiu's eyes were as sharp as an eagle's as he looked at the opposite building. His spiritual sense was like a tidal wave as it spread to the opposite building. In a flash, he found a window that was more than 10 stories high. 2 silver needles silently appeared in his hands. With a flick of his fingers, the 2 silver needles pierced through the air and accurately pierced between the eyebrows of 2 snipers who were 1 to 200 meters away from him. He snorted coldly. He didn't even bother to check whether the 2 men were dead or not. He casually tidied up his collar, retracted his spiritual sense, and then walked toward the car. Take me to the dock. After sitting in the car, Tan Xiu calmly said, Pearl Port, Jingmen Island's super large dock. Aside from luxury liners and yachts, there were also heavy cargo ships docked here. The liner prepared by the Everlasting Feast Hall was docked here. Grand Master. After Gu Xiaoxue received the news of Tan Xiu's arrival, she immediately came out from the luxury liner to greet him. The liner was tens of meters long. Although it was not a super large liner, it could accommodate 100 or 200 people at the same time. At the moment, there were no attendants on board, nor was there anyone else other than the Everlasting Feast Hall. Dozens of experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall could easily maneuver the luxury liner. Including the busy chef in the kitchen, all of them were experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall. Is everything ready? Asked Tan Xiu calmly after boarding the luxury liner. Everything is ready. We can set sail at any time. Gu Xiaoxue nodded. If the sea conditions are good, it will only take 11 hours to reach Clam Island from here. In other words, we'll be able to get there tomorrow morning. Let's set sail. Tan Xiu nodded. Sheraton Hotel Banquet Hall. As the charity gala ended, the guests left one after another. Several experts of the Yao family with decent strength were pacing back and forth in the corner of the resting area with puzzled looks in their eyes. Their eyes lingered on the seemingly sleeping Yao Xinhua, but no one dared to step forward to wake him up. What happened? Ouyang Lei sent off groups of guests and went to the lounge in the corner, a little tipsy. Seeing the appearance of the Yao family and Yao Xinhua, a surprised look appeared on his face. An expert of the Yao family shook his head and said, "Our young master seems to be asleep." Ouyang Lei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Your young master is really a weirdo to be able to fall asleep on such an occasion. However, the charity gala is over. Wake him up. If you're really too sleepy, you can get a room in a hotel. What's the point of sleeping here? Several experts of the Yao family looked embarrassed. One of them nodded slightly and walked to Yao Xinhua's side, saying, "Young master, we should leave." There was no movement. Yao Xinhua still maintained his sleeping appearance. He didn't even move an inch. The Yao family's expert slightly frowned and touched Yao Xinhua with his hand. After finding that he still had no reaction, his complexion slightly changed. He increased the strength of his hand and shook Yao Xinhua, but the result was the same. Not good. Something happened. Immediately, several experts of the Yao family gathered around with horrified expressions on their faces. They were the Yao family's experts responsible for Yao Xinhua's safety. If something happened to Yao Xinhua, they would be severely punished. Ouyang Lei walked to Ouyang Lei's side. He frowned and shook Yao Xinhua a few times. After finding that he still had no reaction, he immediately said, "He doesn't seem to be drunk. On the contrary, he looks like, call 120 immediately and let the hospital rescue personnel come here." The Yao family's expert who first found Yao Xinhua's condition reached out and directly picked him up. He then said in a deep voice, "No need to call 120. Send the young master to the hospital immediately. Let's go." "I'll go with you," said Ouyang Lei quickly. The Yao family's young master, Yao Xinhua, had an accident at the charity gala. Ouyang Lei was well aware that this matter was inextricably related to the Ouyang family. Furthermore, he also wanted to know what was going on with Yao Xinhua, so he strode to catch up. An hour later, Jingmen Island's First People's Hospital. The president of the hospital, Zhuang Yuanxiu, was wearing a white coat. Her brows were tightly knitted as she looked at Ouyang Lei's physical examination report. "President Zhuang, what's the situation with our young master?" An expert of the Yao family hurriedly asked. Zhuang Yuanxiu shook his head and forced a smile. "The examination shows that he's very healthy. As for why he's unconscious, we can't find any reason. How about we carry out a comprehensive examination on him, which will take a lot of time. I'm afraid the results will come out tomorrow morning." The Yao family's expert hurriedly asked, "President Zhuang, will our young master's life be in danger?" "It's hard to say." Zhuang Yuanxiu shook his head. Through the routine examination, not only is his life not in danger, but his body is also very healthy. There's no injury on his body. However, his coma is very unreasonable. I can't tell the specific situation at present. We need to carry out a comprehensive examination before we can draw a conclusion. The Yao family's expert was silent for a moment. Then he nodded and said, "Then I'll have to trouble President Zhuang. I'll immediately report the young master's condition back to the family. I hope the results from your hospital can come out quickly." "Don't worry," Zhuang Yuanxiu replied and turned to look at Ouyang Lei. "President Zhuang, if there's anything you need our Ouyang family to do, just say it," said Ouyang Lei. "Nothing for the time being." Zhuang Yuanxiu shook his head. "Take a rest first. Our hospital will take care of the patient. I've told the person in charge of the inpatient department to send someone to stay here 24 hours to take care of him." "All right, then I'll have to trouble you." Ouyang Lei said a few polite words to the Yao family's experts before he bid farewell and left. Since the hospital couldn't find out Yao Xinhua's condition, it was meaningless for him to stay here. Furthermore, he didn't like Yao Xinhua, not only because of his arrogant character, but also because he was the sworn enemy of his future brother-in-law. Late at night, in a luxurious villa complex in Jingmen Island, A Mercedes-Benz slowly drove in. When it entered the open electric gate of the villa's courtyard, the driver opened the back seat's door and respectfully looked at Ouyang Lei coming out from the inside. At this time, Ouyang Lei was slightly drunk, but the cool breeze made him more spirited. "Strange, why is the light on?" Ouyang Lei muttered to himself. He then ordered the driver to leave and strode into the villa's hall. Although he was the eldest young master of the Ouyang clan and the future successor, he was very low-key. Even his secret residence was not known by many. "Auntie Chang?" Ouyang Lei looked around and found that the housekeeper, Auntie Chang, who usually waited for him in the hall, was not in the living room today, which made the strange feeling in his heart more intense. Being cautious by nature, he went to the left corridor and knocked on the door of Auntie Chang's room. After finding no movement inside, he immediately opened the door and found that the light inside was on, but no one was there. "Where is she?" Ouyang Lei frowned and a bad premonition grew inside his heart. When he came back to the door of the next room, he suddenly found that Auntie Chang was sleeping soundly on the guest bed. Suddenly, his slightly worried heart relaxed. He smiled and shook his head, then turned around and left. When he came to the second floor, he habitually opened the door of the study room. When he saw the environment inside, his pupils rapidly shrank and his eyes burst with a horrified look. It was a messy scene with things lying all over the place. Many of the things he particularly treasured, such as the expensive 4 treasures of the study, were carelessly thrown on the ground, and ink was spilled on the floor. The door of the bookcase in the study room was open, and the books on it were very messy. Many of them were also thrown on the ground. "I've been robbed." Ouyang Lei rushed to the cloakroom. When he saw that the cloakroom was also turned upside down, he instantly sprinted to the innermost wardrobe. Damn! The clothes in the wardrobe were carelessly thrown all over the floor. On the innermost side of the wardrobe, the hidden safe had been pried open, and all the extremely valuable things inside had disappeared. Although he was distressed to lose those gold bricks, jewelry, and antiques, it was still within his acceptable range. But this safe contained the extremely important account book of the Ouyang family. The content of the account book even recorded some of the Ouyang family's shady business. Something big has happened. Ouyang Lei's lips trembled, and the drunkenness completely disappeared. After a few heavy breaths, he quickly took out his mobile phone and dialed a mobile phone number. "Dad, something happened. The place where I live was robbed. Not only all the valuable things were stolen, but even the account book that recorded the basic records of our family's very important business was also stolen by the thief. Once the accounts recorded in the account book are exposed, our Ouyang family will be in big trouble, big trouble." "Bastard!" Ouyang Wenjin's angry curse came from the phone. Half an hour later, Ouyang Wenjin arrived with dozens of Ouyang family's experts. When he saw his son, Ouyang Lei, whose face was pale and eyes were flickering with fear, he shouted, "Tell me everything and don't leave out even half a word. Also, tell me, why did you put so many important accounts of the family in such a poor security place?" Chapter 5:35. With a bitter expression, Ouyang Lei reported what he found after coming back tonight. Then, he explained, "Those account books have actually been here for several years. I thought this was the safest and most hidden place. Who would have thought? Who would have thought?" Ouyang Wenjin angrily shouted. "Who would have thought that you would be targeted by a thief? I thought you were very cautious and prudent, but I didn't expect that you would actually piss me off. If those account books are not found or exposed, our Ouyang family will suffer huge losses. It's very likely that we will be attacked by those enemies who have been coveting us." "What should we do next, Dad?" asked Ouyang Lei in panic. Ouyang Wenjin took a deep breath to calm his anger and said, "What else can we do? Even if we have to turn the entire Jingmen Island upside down, we must find the thief who stole our things. The most important thing is to find the lost account books. Also, notify the people in charge of those shady businesses to immediately suspend all their business, destroy all the shady things, and then hide for me." Nodding repeatedly, Ouyang Lei thought for a while and then asked, "Should I notify Lulu to also suspend the Paradise Club's business?" Ouyang Wenjin stared blankly and asked in a deep voice, Does Lulu's Paradise Club also exist in those account books? No, but I'm afraid. Ouyang Lei shook his head. Notify her. Ouyang Wenjin nodded. Although the Paradise Club was created by Lulu, it's also our Ouyang family's business. Now that the account books are lost, I'm afraid that any shady business of our Ouyang family will become their target in case someone tries to make a fuss about it. Ouyang Lei nodded and forced a smile. I got it. Tan Xiu came to the charity banquet uninvited. After the banquet, the Yao family's first young master, Yao Xinhua, mysteriously fell into a coma, and now I'm here, something's wrong. What's wrong? Asked Ouyang Wenjin with a frown. A look of recollection flashed in Ouyang Lei's eyes. As if recalling something, he immediately took out his mobile and dialed Tan Xiu's number. What made him extremely depressed was that the reply he received was that the phone had been turned off. Dad, I'm going to the Everlasting Feast Hall, said Ouyang Lei in a deep voice. Why are we going to the Everlasting Feast Hall? Asked Ouyang Wenjin. I suspect that the Everlasting Feast Hall has something to do with the burglary here tonight, said Ouyang Lei. To be precise, it has something to do with Tan Xiu. How so? Ouyang Wenjin asked. I think the bizarre events that happened today are all related to Tan Xiu, said Ouyang Lei. He suddenly came to the charity banquet. Originally, I planned to let him meet you after the banquet ended, but I found out that he left early. You should know about the relationship between the Yao family and the Tang family. The place where Yao Xinhua fainted was in the corner of the resting area where Tan Xiu had stayed before. Also, I clearly remember that because I kept calling Tang Xiu my future brother-in-law, he told a young man next to him to remember my appearance and gave him a night's time to do something for me. He also told me to beg him tomorrow morning. That's right, Tang Xiu. Ouyang Wenjin asked strangely. You've been calling Tan Xiu your future brother-in-law? Yes, that's what I call him, said Ouyang Lei awkwardly. That girl, Lulu, is determined to marry Tan Xiu. She even abandoned the Paradise Club and took out all her money to open a villa in Shanghai. She has a tacit understanding of her purpose. Therefore, I think that Tan Xiu is not an outsider and is very affectionate with him. Ouyang Wenjin was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. That's really absurd. I haven't even seen my Ouyang family's future son-in-law. Is this something I should do? It's your younger sister's freedom to like him, but you can't force him to marry only Lulu. If what you said is true, maybe Tan Xiu is playing a joke on us. How about this? I'll personally go to the Everlasting Feast Hall with you. After we see Tan Xiu, we'll know whether he's the one who did it or not. Dad, isn't it a bit unreasonable for a future father-in-law to see his future son-in-law? Ouyang Lei quickly said. I'll go there myself and directly drag him here. You can ask whatever you want when the time comes. Is this the time to joke? Ouyang Wenjin snapped. Don't tell me you don't know how important those account books are to our Ouyang family? Cut the crap and come with me. At 1 a.m. More than a dozen cars were stopped outside the Everlasting Feast Hall's outermost gate. 4 stalwart men coldly looked at Ouyang Lei, who came out of the car and said in a deep voice, Mr. Ouyang, our Everlasting Feast Hall doesn't receive guests at this time. Please come again tomorrow morning if you want to spend some money. I'm not here to spend money, but to see Tan Xiu, said Ouyang Lei. The stalwart man frowned and asked, Have you made an appointment with our boss before? Ouyang Lei shook his head and said, But I have a very important matter that I must see him immediately. The stalwart man shook his head and said, I'm sorry. I can't let you in if you haven't made an appointment with our boss in advance. Please come again tomorrow morning if you have something to do. If Tan Xiu hadn't turned off his cell phone, do you think I would have come here personally? Ouyang Lei angrily said. Cut the crap and contact him immediately. Tell him that I have an important matter to discuss with him and that he must see me. The stalwart man shook his head and said, I also want to inform boss, but he hasn't come back yet, so I can't help you. You said that Tan Xiu hasn't come back yet? Asked Ouyang Lei. The stalwart man nodded. Since Tan Xiu hasn't come back, then Gu Xiaoxue should be back, right? Asked Ouyang Lei. Our little boss hasn't come back yet either, said the stalwart man. I know you're lying to me, aren't you? Ouyang Lei angrily shouted. Let me tell you something. Tan Xiao is my future brother-in-law, and he will be a family with our Ouyang family in the future. I have an important matter to discuss with him, but if you refuse, Tan Xiao will definitely punish you severely later. Hurry up and let us in. The stalwart man naturally knew that Ouyang Lei was Ouyang Lulu's blood brother. He also knew that his boss had an unusual relationship with Lulu. Even the little boss, Gu Xiaoxue, and Ouyang Lulu were like sisters. What's going on? The Everlasting Feast Hall's patrol team arrived. A middle-aged man with a slightly higher rank strode forward and asked in a deep voice. The stalwart man explained the situation and even told him about the relationship between Ouyang Lei and Tan Xiao. The middle-aged man looked at Ouyang Lei with a smile on his face and said, "Mr. Ouyang, I shouldn't reveal my boss's whereabouts by right. But since you're not an outsider, there's no harm in telling you. Our boss and little boss went out to sea overnight. I don't know when they will come back." Ouyang Lei frowned and asked, "They went out to sea? Why did they go out to sea so late at night?" The middle-aged man shook his head and said, "I don't know about that. But what I said just now is true." Ouyang Lei was silent for a moment. He then turned around and returned to the car. He told the situation to Ouyang Wenjin. Finally, Ouyang Wenjin said, "Send someone to stay outside the gate and wait for Tan Xiao. Report to me immediately once he comes back. Let's go back first." Understood. At this time, in the thicket dozens of meters away from the gate post, Yang Lu held a toothpick in the corner of his mouth. His handsome face revealed an expression that was neither a smile nor a smile. He had indeed spent some time and effort to find Ouyang Lei's residence, but the results seemed to be good. Ouyang Lei was unexpectedly able to bring so many people to rush here in the middle of the night. What a pity that Tan Xiao has gone out to sea. Even if you come tomorrow morning, I'm afraid you won't be able to see him. I'll let you suffer for a while. Yang Lu muttered inwardly as he quietly disappeared into the woods with a smile on his face. However, just half a minute after he left and had yet to pass through the woods, a pair of iron pincer-like hands stretched out from behind a tree and pinched the back of his neck. "Don't move if you don't want to die." A deep and low voice sounded behind Yang Lu. Despite his tenacious mind, Yang Lu was scared out of his wits by the sudden turn of events. He was very confident in his skills and was even more confident in his concealment ability. Yet, he didn't even notice that the other party had appeared beside him despite always being extremely vigilant. Don't misunderstand me. I'm Tan Xiao's friend and also a VIP of the Everlasting Feast Hall. Yang Li's voice was a bit trembling as he raised his hands in an instant. Bush. 3 hazy figures flashed and appeared, while the iron pincer-like hands moved away from the back of Yang Li's neck. The 3 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall who were responsible for patrolling the night had surrounded Yang Lu in a triangular formation. One of them observed Yang Lu a few times before he cupped his fists and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Yang. But our Everlasting Feast Hall has a rule that no one is allowed to leave the accommodation area late at night. You were sneaky just now, so we couldn't find you first." Yang Lu rubbed the slightly aching back of his neck as he looked at the trio with fear in his eyes. Then he forced a smile and said, "What kind of monsters are you people from the Everlasting Feast Hall, exactly? I'm a famous godly thief. How come I feel that you guys are more suitable to steal than me after meeting you guys?" "I'm sorry." The big man spoke again. Yang Lu forced a smile and waved his hand, saying, "Before Tan Xiao left, he told me that your Everlasting Feast Hall has a lot of rules. Forget it. Since you don't allow me to wander around late at night, then I'll go back and sleep. Remember, don't tell anyone about me if they ask about me." "Understood." The big man nodded. Chapter 5:36. On the rippling blue sea, a luxury liner braved the wind and waves as it sailed southward. On the deck of the ship's bow, Tan Xiao held a teacup and quietly looked into the distance. After a night of sailing, the sun had already risen from the distant sea, and the outline of an island ahead was already faintly visible. "That's Clam Island, Grand Master." Gu Xiaoxue quietly appeared behind Tan Xiao with graceful steps. "Your proposal is very good. It's indeed suitable to place the medicinal herb plantation base on this island. said Tan Xiao with a smile. The spiritual qi here is abundant, and it will be greatly beneficial to the growth of the medicinal herbs if we arrange a large array here. That's right, our people have already explored this clam island, right? What's the area of this island? It's 5.1 kilometers long and 3.6 kilometers wide, with a maximum elevation of about 12 meters, said Gu Xiaoxue. The island is mostly covered with woodland, but there's a natural lake with a diameter of about 200 to 300 meters inside. Additionally, our Everlasting Feast Hall's members who are proficient in pharmacology have explored the island and found that there are several precious medicinal herbs on the island, some of which are on the medicinal herb list you prepared. Tan Xiao nodded and sighed. This kind of isolated island with no human traces all year round will naturally grow some precious medicinal herbs under the nourishment of abundant spiritual qi. Even the age of these medicinal herbs was shockingly ancient. If my guess is correct, I'm afraid that many of the medicinal herbs we found are very old, right? That's right, said Gu Xiaoxue with a smile. There are more than a dozen precious medicinal herbs that are more than 1,000 years old. If these precious medicinal herbs were to be sold on the market, their value would definitely be very high, said Tan Xiao. Unfortunately, there are very few people in this world who are proficient in medicinal herbs, and even fewer people come to this clam island. That's why these medicinal herbs can be preserved for such a long time. While the two were talking, the liner was only a few kilometers away from Clam Island. Due to Tan Xiao's order, the liner didn't stop at the northern coast of Clam Island but circled around the island. Tan Xiao could clearly see another island a few kilometers south of Clam Island. The area of this island seemed to be smaller than Clam Island, but the terrain was vaguely higher, with the highest point being about 30 to 40 meters. Boss, we found a small liner on the southern coastline of Clam Island. Chief Instructor Gao Feng, who had been stationed at the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ for a long time, strode over with a pair of binoculars in his hand and a grim expression on his face. I saw it. Tan Xiao nodded lightly. Gao Feng was stunned, and a strange look appeared in his eyes. One must know that the liner they were on was several kilometers away from the coastline of Clam Island. Even if ordinary people could see the island, it would be very difficult for them to see a small freighter parked on the coastline, right? Unless someone had a pair of eagle eyes. Gu Xiaoxue glanced at Gao Feng, who had a weird expression on his face, and faintly said, "When your cultivation reaches our level, you will be able to see things from a few kilometers away." Gao Feng's eyes lit up as he nodded respectfully. There's someone on that liner. If my guess is correct, it's the Yao family's liner, said Tan Xiao lightly. Moreover, they have already discovered us. Send someone over. Yes. Gao Feng acknowledged and immediately returned to the cabin. Quickly. When Tan Xiao's liner approached the coastline, 4 stalwart men carrying firearms on the other small liner were already standing on the stern deck. Private island, leave immediately. The leader of the group, a bald man, had a cold and gloomy expression in his eyes as he shouted with a megaphone. However, Tan Xiao's liner ignored the other party's shout and stopped tens of meters away from the small liner. Tan Xiao and Gu Xiaoxue then stepped on the reef on the shore, followed by Gao Feng and 10 other experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall. 4 burly men rushed over with guns, and the leader, a bald man, roared angrily. Tan Xiao faintly asked, "You're not good people since you have firearms. Since you said that this island is private, then I'd like to ask, what's his surname?" "His surname is Yao," said the bald man proudly. "Do you know the Yao family in the imperial capital? This island has been obtained by our Yao family, so it's now our private territory. I don't care who you are. Leave immediately, else don't blame us for being impolite." The Yao family? What an awe-inspiring Yao family. Tan Xiao coldly glanced at him and said, "Kill them." Bush, 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 bush. 4 figures flickered lightning fast and instantly pounced toward the 4 big men of the Yao family. Their speed was very fast, and without anyone noticing, they were holding sharp daggers in their hands. Fire. The bald man's expression greatly changed as he aimed his gun at the incoming figures and pulled the trigger without hesitation. However, a series of bullets were fired, Yet none of them could hit the 4 experts of the everlasting feast hall. Their speed was extremely fast, and the distance of more than 20 meters was covered in the blink of an eye. The sharp daggers slashed across the 4 big men of the Yao family with fear written all over their faces as they accurately pierced their vital points. Bam! 4 corpses were thrown on the beach. A cold glint flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes. A glaring ray of light flashed from the small liner not far away as a silver needle instantly appeared in his hand. He flicked his hand and threw it, piercing the glass and piercing the glabella of a man holding a sniper rifle. Go! Kill everyone on that liner! Tang Xiu's eyes narrowed as a cold expression flashed in his eyes. Immediately, the 4 experts didn't hesitate to pounce toward the small liner. They were all ruthless characters whose hands were stained with blood. They executed Tan Xiu's order without hesitation. Wait! Tang Xiu's complexion suddenly changed as he watched the 4 people rushing toward the small liner. Disbelief filled his eyes and he instantly retracted his spiritual sense that he had released. Gu Xiaoxue turned her head and asked in surprise, "What's wrong, Grand Master?" Tan Xiu didn't answer her but strode toward the small liner. When he came to the front of the liner, he lifted his feet and stepped on the void to step on the liner's deck. God! Aside from Gu Xiaoxue, Gao Feng and the other 10 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall were dumbfounded as they watched Tan Xiu step on the void and step on the liner's deck. Their heartbeat accelerated. Although they were perfectly aware that one could fly in the air after their cultivation had broken through to a very high level, they were still shocked to the point that it was hard for them to be able to see such a miraculous scene with their own eyes. "All of you come out." Standing on the bow deck, Tang Xiu shouted sternly. At this moment, more than a dozen people who operated the liner and were responsible for serving as attendants came out of the cabin. Most of them were men, but there were also 4 women. One of them was a familiar face that Tan Xiu never dreamed that he would see here under such circumstances. Tan Xiu? Cheng Yannan also didn't expect that she would meet Tan Xiu here. Her eyes were a bit flustered and her heartbeat accelerated. Tan Xiu frowned deeply. He pointed at Cheng Yannan and shouted in a deep voice, "Kill them all except her." Affirmative. The 4 stalwart men attacked very quickly. Amidst the screams and screams, they quickly killed more than a dozen people. Under Gu Xiaoshue's order, the corpses were removed from the ship and thrown on the beach. Blarg, never had Cheng Yannan seen such a bloody scene. Her stomach acid gushed out, making her bend over and retch. Fear could be seen in her eyes, as if she couldn't believe that the order just now was issued by Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu stood in front of Cheng Yannan. He didn't have the intention to kill Cheng Yannan, but he wanted to figure out why Cheng Yannan appeared here. It must be noted that this liner belonged to the Yao family, and those who were qualified to come here were also people that the Yao family trusted. After all, the Yao family's secret intention to rent Clam Island was an absolute secret. "Give her some water to rinse her mouth," Tan Xiu ordered. Immediately after, a stalwart man entered the cabin and took out a bottle of mineral water from inside. He then handed it to Cheng Yannan, who had stopped vomiting. "Thank you." Cheng Yannan's complexion was a bit pale. She took the bottle of water and rinsed her mouth. Her eyes quickly glanced at the corpses on the beach before she slowly looked up at Tan Xiu. "Speak," Tan Xiu said lightly. "How come you are here?" Hesitating for a moment, Cheng Yannan said, "My uncle is Yao Qingting. My family was involved in renting Clam Island. I begged my uncle to bring me here." "You know that's not what I'm asking," Tan Xiu said in a deep voice. Cheng Yannan's eyes were somewhat evasive as she lowered her head and said, "What do you want to know, then?" "Cheng Yannan," Tan Xiu snorted coldly and said, "I used to regard you as a good classmate and friend. Speaking of which, I was even your savior. I didn't expect that there would be a day when we would have to hide our conversation. I won't ask if you don't want to say it." Cheng Yannan suddenly looked up and looked at Gu Xiaoxue and the surrounding men, saying, "Can we talk in private?" Tan Xiu nodded. He then looked at Gao Feng and said, "Dispose of all those corpses and don't leave any traces. Sail to the sea and sink this liner." "Understood," Gao Feng replied. Tan Xiu's figure flashed and appeared beside Cheng Yannan. He grabbed her shoulder and flew straight to the beach. His speed was extremely fast. In just a few seconds, he and Qing Yannan had already appeared 100 meters away. Qing Yannan, who was dizzy and disoriented, managed to regain her footing with great difficulty. She turned her head and looked at the small liner 100 meters away, her eyes filled with disbelief. Tan Xiaoyu, yeah, you're not dreaming, said Tan Xiao lightly. Qing Yannan gulped down her saliva and looked at Tan Xiao in disbelief, asking with a trembling voice, "Who are you? How can you fly?" Chapter 537. Tan Xiao calmly looked at Qing Yannan's incredulous expression and indifferently said, "My identity is very special, so I can't explain it clearly in just a few words. Since we've met and will have a lot of time together, I'll let you know some things that are hard for ordinary people to know. But you still have to answer my question." Qing Yannan calmed down her surging mood. She turned around and walked a few steps toward the island. She stopped next to a thick tree and bitterly said, "Tan Xiao, I believe you also know that I'm a member of the Cheng family in the imperial capital. My sister and I were even ostracized by our family. After returning to the imperial capital, I should have continued to enjoy my university life and have a fulfilling and relaxing time in my studies. But just half a month ago, my sister went missing while handling a criminal case, and there's no news of her since then. My only backing is my sister. My family members don't like us sisters, so they began to target me and forced me to marry the infamous Chu Xiang of the Chu family in the imperial capital. Do you know? Chu Xiang is known as one of the 4 calamities in the imperial capital. He has done countless stupid things and has harmed dozens of girls. He wants me to marry him so that I can climb up the Chu family's high branch. How could I agree?" Seeing that Qing Yannan stopped talking, Tan Xiao lightly said, "Don't you still have an uncle? Your Qing family and the Yao family have a close relationship, so how could the elders of the Qing family dare to force you?" "That's right. Yao Qingting is indeed my uncle, but he doesn't have any familial affection for us sisters. I'm afraid he wouldn't even look at me if we didn't have such a relationship." Qing Yannan sneered. "Fortunately, Yao Qingting's wife, my aunt, likes me very much. If it weren't for my aunt's plea, how could he have brought me here? How could there be a place for me among the women who serve tea and pour water?" Tan Xiao fell into silence. Qing Yannan bitterly said, "I can't stay in the imperial capital anymore. If I hadn't coincidentally learned that Yao Qingting was bringing people to the South China Sea, I'm afraid I would have already escaped from the imperial capital and fled somewhere else. Although I don't know what they're going to do on Clam Island, I've made up my mind that I'll stay here even if there's only a 1 in a million chance. Or I'll take the opportunity to leave Jingmen Island alone." Tan Xiao sighed inwardly and asked, "Where's Yao Qingting?" Qing Yannan pointed to the depths of the island and said, "He took a few people and went inside. He should be back in the evening." "The Yao family can't get this Clam Island." Tan Xiao nodded. "Since you don't want to go back, you can stay here from now on." Qing Yannan's eyes lit up and she asked, "What do you mean?" "This Clam Island will be mine in the future," said Tan Xiao confidently. "Even if the Yao family exhausts all their strength, they won't be able to get it from me. I want to plant medicinal herbs here in the future. Since we're acquaintances, you can stay and help me. I'll also satisfy your salary." Qing Yannan pondered for a moment before she nodded and said, "I hope you can get this Clam Island in the future. But you've killed so many people of the Yao family, they won't let it go. Tan Xiao, you probably don't know how powerful the Yao family is, right? Let me tell you, the Yao family—" Tan Xiao raised his hand to interrupt her and calmly said, "I've already experienced how powerful the Yao family is. Perhaps you don't know that my surname is Tang, and I'm a member of the Tang family in the imperial capital." "The Tang family?" Qing Yannan's eyes narrowed as she involuntarily exclaimed out loud. "That's right. The Tang family." Tan Xiao nodded. "Tan Xiao, I didn't expect that you're a member of the Tang family in the imperial capital. The Tang family and the Yao family. I get it. No wonder you showed no mercy to the Yao family. I know a bit about the grievances between your 2 families. Let's go." Tan Xiao smiled indifferently. "You'll stay on our liner first. After we deal with Yao Qingting's group, No one from the Yao family will set foot on this island again. You'll stay here later. I'll arrange some people to provide you with food, clothing, and shelter. I'll also leave some people here to protect you. Qing Yannan looked dazed. She hesitated and asked, Tan Xiu, you want to kill Yao? Yao Qingting? Do you think he can still leave? Asked Tan Xiu. Qing Yannan gritted her teeth and said, Tan Xiu, can you promise me something? If you want to plead for Yao Qingting, I think you can forget about it, said Tan Xiu. I don't want to plead leniency for Yao Qingting. Qing Yannan shook her head and said, he doesn't have any familial love for me. What I want to ask you is, if the Tangs and the Yaos really shed all pretense of cordiality in the future and your two families have a life and death battle, can you spare my aunt's life if your family wins? Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he nodded and said, I promise you. Qing Yannan shot a grateful look at Tan Xiu. As she was about to follow him to the liner, she suddenly recalled something and quickly asked, You haven't told me yet. How did you fly me just now? Don't ask this question again if you want to stay on this clam island, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. There are some things I won't tell you now. But if you work for me in the future and I'm satisfied with your work, you'll know a lot of things. Qing Yannan was silent for a moment before she suddenly smiled and asked, Since you don't want to tell me, then I won't ask. But can you answer my other question? The last one. Ask away, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Do you have a girlfriend while you're studying in Shanghai? Asked Qing Yannan. Let's talk about feelings later, said Tan Xiu with a smile. You must study well when you're studying and learn more things during your 4 years in university. Besides, I still have a lot of things to do. How can I have the leisure time to talk about love? An extraordinary splendor flashed in Qing Yannan's eyes as she said with a smile, I agree with your idea. You must focus on your career when you're young. Let's go. Tan Xiu took Qing Yannan back to the coast and saw the small liner sinking in the distant sea, whereas the liner he took was returning to the coast. When the liner docked, Tan Xiu took Qing Yannan to the deck and said, She's my high school classmate. Let her stay on our liner. Also, the Yao family's people are also on the island. Kill them directly once they appear. Xiao Xue, come with me to the island. All right. Xiao Xue smiled and nodded to Qing Yannan. Then she followed Tan Xiu and floated down the ship. Their figures gradually disappeared into the woods on the island. The primitive woods were lush with trees. The duo seemed to be strolling leisurely, but their speed was actually very fast. Just a light step could take them 7 to 8 meters away. As the duo continued to go deeper, they saw a lot of medicinal herbs. Many of them were common herbs, but they could also occasionally see precious ones. There were also a lot of wild animals on this island. 10 minutes later, just as Tan Xiu and Gu Xiaoxue stepped on the highest point in the center of the island, a scream reached their ears. It was accompanied by intense gunshots and several panicked shouts. Run. Scatter and run. Gather at the shoreline where the ship is parked. Fuck those fucking monsters. Get lost. Bim, him, he. Tan Xiu and Gu Xiaoxue glanced at each other and tacitly rushed toward the source of the sound. While running, they even soared into the air, stepping on the branches that were more than 10 meters high and constantly flew on the trees. 10 seconds later, the duo stood on the branches of a big tree and looked down at the 2 fierce beasts that looked like rhinos. The beasts glared fiercely at the 6 men who were fleeing in panic. Behind them were 2 corpses that had been bitten off. The skin is very thick and bullets can't penetrate it. It's very fast. The speed of these people can't be compared with it at all. Grandmaster, they're dead for sure. Gu Xiaoxue's eyes didn't have the slightest trace of pity as she calmly watched the 6 men being chased. Although bullets can hinder these 2 fierce beasts and slow them down a lot, but as you said, they're dead for sure. Tan Xiu nodded. If my guess is correct, the middle-aged man being protected by those 2 should be Yao Qingting of the Yao family. Xiaoxue, I suddenly understand one thing. What is it? Asked Gu Xiaoxue curiously. The Yao family letting Yao Xinhua come to Jingmen Island should be a smokescreen. The one who really contacted the government and prepared to sign the lease contract should be Yao Qingting, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. If my guess is correct, The ship we just sank has the contract that the Yao family is preparing to sign. Grand Master really has great wisdom. Gu Xiaoxue smiled. I think so too. After all, Yao Xinhua is too young, and he doesn't understand a lot of principles in the officialdom. Yao Qingting is also a very important figure in the Yao family. I'm afraid that he came here personally to inspect Clam Island. Once the final decision is made, he'll negotiate the lease with the government. Bring some people here. After these Yao family people are dead, dispose of their corpses, said Tan Xiu. Also, remember to send some people to the sea where the ship was sunk to see if they can find some information from the liner. Grand Master, you want me to leave so that you can personally kill those two fierce beasts, right? Gu Xiaoxue said with a smile. Before we sank the liner, we had already taken back everything we could from the liner. I think it's better for me to stay here and help you. It seems that I really can't hide it from you. Tan Xiu couldn't help but laugh. You think I don't have the ability to kill these two fierce beasts, don't you? Well, since you're willing to stay here, then stay and have a look. In less than a minute, the two rhinoceros-like fierce beasts had already killed Yao Qingting's group of 6. They even wolfed down all the corpses and didn't even spit out the bones. This saves us the trouble of destroying the corpses and erasing the evidence. A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he stood on a tree branch. He softly muttered and then floated down and appeared in front of the two rhinoceros-like fierce beasts. Roar. Chapter 5:38. The sea breeze blew, causing her white dress to flutter. Gu Xiaoxue, who was standing on a tree branch, faintly smiled as she looked at the scene below. Although she knew that her Grand Master's cultivation had made rapid progress in the past few months, she still didn't believe that her Grand Master could easily defeat the two rhino-like fierce beasts. Be careful, Grand Master. Gu Xiaoxue flipped her hand and held two lightning talismans between her fingers. Once her Grand Master was in danger, she would immediately act. Tan Xiu turned his head and faintly smiled. When he looked at the two rhino-like fierce beasts again, he laughed and said, I don't lack fierce beast materials recently, so you too can be spared from death, but you still can't escape punishment. Since the island next door will become a place for me to rear fierce beasts in the future, I'll capture you today and throw you to the island next door. The two rhino-like fierce beasts obviously had some spiritual wisdom. Although they couldn't understand what Tan Xiu was saying, they could still feel Tan Xiu's malice. Therefore, one of the rhino-like fierce beasts glared at Tan Xiu with its big scarlet eyes as it jumped high and used its sharp claws to grab Tan Xiu's head. Its speed was unbelievably fast. If there were ordinary people here, even if they were to stare at it with full concentration, they would only be able to see a fleeting afterimage. Tan Xiu's toes touched the ground and his body instantly retreated. If his cultivation hadn't advanced by leaps and bounds and reached the peak of the viscera transformation stage, perhaps he really wouldn't be a match for this fierce beast. But now, he was confident that he could easily kill this fierce beast. Array weapon, broken saber. A dagger instantly flew out from Tan Xiu's palm. As Tan Xiu continued to send out hand seals, the dagger split into two and then doubled in size. In just a second, thousands of daggers had appeared in front of Tan Xiu. Slash! A low and deep voice came out of his mouth. The densely packed daggers spun at an extremely fast speed and rushed towards the fierce beast in a spiral shape. In an instant, the fierce beast was completely surrounded. Roar! An angry roar came from the rhinoceros-like beast's mouth. Its sharp teeth, claws, and the layers of scales on its body all stood up in an instant. A deep blue halo was spat out along with the roar and instantly exploded like smoke. Crack, crack, crack. The layers of daggers seemed to have cracks on them. The chill that was like blue smoke instantly caused the surrounding temperature to drop to freezing point. The leaves that were swaying in the wind seemed to freeze in an instant. Insignificant skill. A look of disdain flashed across Tan Xiu's eyes. As he waved his arm, a saber light appeared and instantly swept across the rhino-like beast's sharp claws. As the 10 sharp claws were chopped off in an instant, Tan Xiu's figure flashed. As he moved his fingers, a bolt of lightning struck down from the clear sky without any warning. Thunder arts. He was now able to release Dharma spells. The sound of rolling thunder exploded in the sky, and a bolt of lightning as thick as a baby's arm directly struck the back of the rhino-like beast. Although this strike did not turn it into ashes, it still caused it to hit the ground heavily, causing a layer of dust to splash up. On the tree branch, Gu Xiaoxue was dumbfounded as she watched Tan Xiu's mighty appearance. That surging aura made her pupils contract, and she had a feeling of wanting to worship him. She had imagined countless scenes of her grandmaster fighting with the rhino-like beast, but she never thought that her grandmaster could already cast Dharma spells, and the power was actually so strong. One had to know that even the current her couldn't do it to this extent. Could it be that Grandmaster's strength has already surpassed mine? How is this possible? A few months ago, his cultivation level was only... Gu Xiaoxue swallowed her saliva, and the rhythm of her heartbeat was several times stronger than before. Roar! The other rhino-like beast showed a look of fear in its eyes, but when it saw the scene of its companion being attacked, it didn't know whether it was dead or alive. A violent rage surged out of it, and it didn't run away. Instead, it rushed toward Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu nodded and praised, "You never abandon your companion. You're a good psychic beast. In that case, I'll fulfill your wish." Tan Xiu's figure floated up, his feet stood in the air, and he pinched a spell. Suddenly, several waist-thick trees around him were uprooted. When the rhino-like beast jumped up, it was propped up by an earth pillar that rose from under it, and the trunks of several big trees smashed into its body. Bang, bang, bang. The trunks of several big trees were broken, but the beast was also smashed, bleeding from its 7 orifices. It fell heavily next to the other rhino-like beast. At this moment, Tang Xiu's body swooped down like a cannonball and landed on the back of the fierce beast that was bleeding from its 7 orifices. His fists fell like raindrops and smashed the rhino-like fierce beast that was struggling to get up, causing it to scream again and again. Roar! The other rhino-like beast wanted to get up, but Tan Xiu flashed and kicked its abdomen, directly kicking it tens of meters away. After smashing 7 or 8 big trees in a row, it fell heavily to the ground and directly fainted. Half a minute of violent beating. Tan Xiu finally stopped. He grabbed the dying fierce beast, grabbed it, and fiercely smashed it on the other fainted fierce beast. Even the fainted rhino-like fierce beast was abruptly awakened under the huge force. Tan Xiu's ghostly figure instantly caught up. When his feet landed in front of the 2 fierce beasts, a faint smile hung on the corner of his mouth as he shouted in a deep voice, "Do you still want to fight?" The 2 rhino-like fierce beasts were terrified by Tan Xiu at this time. An intense fear bred in their hearts. They struggled to get up and escape, only to find that their scarred bodies were not enough to support them to get up. Tan Xiu turned to look at the dumbfounded Gu Xiaoxue on the tree branch and smilingly said, "How about it? It's quite easy to deal with these 2 fierce beasts, isn't it? In fact, if I wanted to kill them, it would be much easier. I would only need a few seconds to kill them." Gu Xiaoxue took a deep breath and suppressed the shock inside her heart. Her white dress fluttered as though she was a fairy. After she landed at Tang Xiu's side, she cupped her fists and respectfully said, "Grandmaster, your cultivation is very powerful, so it's indeed easy for you to deal with these 2 fierce beasts. I really didn't expect that Grandmaster's cultivation has been promoted to this level. Even I won't be your match even if I go all out, Grandmaster." Tan Xiu chuckled and said, "Even though I have the fortune to cultivate again, it's more of a luck factor. Xiaoxue, this clam island is a good place to plant medicinal herbs. However, a lot of the forest on this island must be cut down. We can leave some trees in the surroundings, but the planting of the medicinal garden inside must be done well. We need to plant a lot of medicinal herbs. Although this island is very large, we still need to use as much land as possible if we want to cultivate herbs on a large scale." "I understand, Grandmaster," said Gu Xiaoxue respectfully. "I'll look for the top planners in the country after we go back and personally bring them here. I'll ask them to design the planning map for us after the inspection." "No need to be so troublesome." Tan Xiu waved his hand. "I'll be responsible for the planning map. You only need to send someone to measure the total area of the medicinal garden. All right, let's go up and have a look." If there are no other problems, let's go to the neighboring island. All right. Gu Xiaoxue replied and grabbed the legs of the two fierce beasts. In the next moment, she soared into the air and flew with Tan Xiu for more than 10 minutes. After observing the entire Clam Island, the duo then flew back to the southern coastline where the liner was anchored. On the deck of the liner's bow, Qing Yannan was sitting on a deck chair, bathing in the sunlight and quietly reading a book. When she noticed two shadows falling from the sky and landing in front of her, she suddenly looked up. "You guys?" Qing Yannan's pupils shrunk and she jumped up from the deck chair in fright. She was 100% sure that Tan Xiu and Gu Xiaoxue had just fallen from the sky. What did this mean? It meant that the two of them had flown down. Furthermore, the most inconceivable thing to her was that Gu Xiaoxue's small body was actually holding two wild beasts that were twice her size. Gu Xiaoxue reached out and threw the two dying fierce beasts on the deck. She then looked at the several stalwart men and said, "Watch them. If they dare to struggle and get up, kill them directly." "Understood," a few stalwart men said respectfully. Gu Xiaoxue let out a faint smile and looked at Qing Yannan. "Miss Cheng, since Grand Master has kept your life and also remembered the friendship between us as classmates, then we're not outsiders. I'm Gu Xiaoxue. You can call me Big Sister Gu or Xiaoxue. We're going to the neighboring island later. Do you want to stay on the ship? Do you want to go with us? Or stay on Clam Island? You can rest assured that I'll send some people to protect you if you want to stay on Clam Island." "I'll go with you," said Qing Yannan without hesitation. Gu Xiaoxue nodded with a smile and said, "Pass down the order to sail to the neighboring island. In addition, leave 4 people to guard Clam Island from now on. If any outsiders dare to land on the island, kill them directly. However, if the other party has a large number of people and you think you're not their match, then promptly hide and don't confront them." The 4 stalwart men cupped their fists and said, "This subordinate understands." The liner set sail and it didn't take long for it to sail to the neighboring island. Tan Xiu and Gu Xiaoxue still didn't bring anyone else as they flew toward the island. After entering the mountain forest, the duo observed for a while. What made them feel a bit inconceivable was that they actually found a lot of fierce beasts on this island. After a careful count, they found about 70 to 80 fierce beasts. "Grand Master, I think there's something wrong with this island." Gu Xiaoxue slightly furrowed her brows and spoke after flying up to the air with Tan Xiu. "I also noticed it." Tan Xiu nodded. "We found those 2 fierce beasts on Clam Island. This island is very close to Clam Island, yet there are so many fierce beasts on this island. I'm afraid there's something special about it." His words abruptly came to a halt. The moment they flew to the edge of the island, he found the scene in the sea below unbelievable. Chapter 539. On the southern part of the island, there were hundreds of fierce beasts. Some of these beasts were swimming on the surface of the sea, while some were treading on the surface of the sea as if they were taking a leisurely stroll. Thousands of fierce beasts were densely packed on the beach. Some of them were lying on the beach, while others were jumping around and running around. Heavens! How come there are so many fierce beasts here? Despite Gu Xiaoxue's composure, she couldn't help but exclaim at this time. A glint flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes. Although he couldn't figure out why there were so many fierce beasts here, he seemed to see countless fierce beasts being kept in captivity and countless cultivation resources piled up like a mountain. "Xiaoxue, I don't believe in heaven, but I still want to thank it at this moment. The appearance of so many fierce beasts here is like charcoal in snowy weather. If we can take care of this place and control all the fierce beasts below, we won't need to capture ordinary fierce beasts to domesticate." Gu Xiaoxue's eyes lit up, but they dimmed after a while. She forced a smile and said, "This place is too terrifying, Grand Master. Even if our cultivation is very high, I'm afraid we can't catch all of them, right?" "We can't catch all of them, but I believe we can catch them sooner or later if we bring more experts here," Tan Xiu said with a smile. Suddenly, Tan Xiu's complexion suddenly changed. The moment he reached out to hold Gu Xiaoxue's slender waist, his figure swooped toward the mountain forest like a lightning bolt. In just a short moment, he had already taken Gu Xiaoxue and appeared in the dense mountain forest. What's wrong, Grandmaster? Gu Xiaoxue had almost never been in contact with a man. Being hugged by Tan Xiu by her slender waist, the warmth from Tan Xiu's big hands, and the smell of Tan Xiu's masculine scent made her body slightly weak. Even the tips of her ears had turned a little red at this moment. Tan Xiu didn't notice Gu Xiaoxue's abnormality. He didn't let go of Gu Xiaoxue at this time. Instead, he quickly rushed towards the northern coastline with her. 2 minutes later, he returned to the liner with Gu Xiaoxue and gave the order to set sail. The liner set sail and once again stopped at the coastline of Clam Island, but this time, it was already at the northern coastline of Clam Island. Grandmaster, what's going on? Gu Xiaoxue was finally released by Tan Xiu. She secretly heaved a sigh of relief and asked again. Frowning, Tan Xiu forced a smile and said, "It seems that I'm just indulging in fantasy. We thought that we had encountered great benefits, but we forgot about the great trouble. I've encountered such a gathering of ferocious beasts several times, and I've even encountered a large-scale gathering of immortal beasts. If my guess is correct, the island next door has already been occupied by vicious beasts and has become a vicious beast paradise. There are 2 necessary conditions to form a vicious beast paradise." Gu Xiaoxue asked in surprise, "Which 2? "First, there's definitely a huge spiritual vein under that island," said Tan Xiu seriously. "And this spiritual vein is very active." Gu Xiaoxue nodded and said, "I felt it when we just landed on the island. The concentration of heaven and earth spiritual qi there is indeed several times stronger than that of Clam Island. That's just one of the reasons. The second reason is that there must be very terrifying fierce beasts on that island," said Tan Xiu. "Such fierce beasts are at least high-level ones. Even with my current cultivation, I'm not sure if I can deal with them. I even suspect that the strength of that fierce beast is far beyond mine and has reached a very high level. That's because the number of fierce beasts we've seen is more than 2,000, and this is only the ones on the surface. Who knows how many fierce beasts there are under the sea?" Gu Xiaoxue's complexion greatly changed and she hurriedly asked, "Then what should we do?" "That island is the best place to rear fierce beasts. It'll be a pity if we give it up. Furthermore, if we can't solve the problem of the fierce beasts on that island, even if we get Clam Island, I'm afraid it'll be dangerous to plant medicinal herbs there." A smile appeared on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he said, "We may not be the most powerful fierce beast's opponent, but don't forget that our everlasting feast hall still has a powerful expert." Gu Xiaoxue stared blankly for a moment before her eyes lit up and she excitedly said, "You mean Elder Ji, Grand Master?" "Yes, it's Ijima." Tan Xiu nodded. "She may be injured, but she used to be an immortal, after all. Although her current strength has fallen to the level of an immortal, it won't be a problem for her to blow up the entire earth if she goes all out. Not to mention dealing with a fierce beast." A bright smile appeared on Gu Xiaoxue's face as she heavily nodded and said, "You're right, Grandmaster. If old Ji were to come, he would definitely be able to kill the most powerful beast right away. Do you want me to send someone back to call Elder Ji over?" "No hurry." Tan Xiu waved and said, "The purpose of our visit this time is to investigate. I'm very satisfied with the result. All right, let's go back to Jingmen Island first. Once I get Clam Island and the neighboring island through my connections, we'll come back again. Also, I originally planned to leave some people here, but now it seems that the security issue here is quite worrying, so we'll all leave." "Are you going to take that classmate of yours with you?" asked Gu Xiaoxue curiously. "I trust her." Tan Xiu nodded. "I believe she won't divulge the things I told her." Tang Xiu nodded. "But just in case, send someone to keep an eye on her." "Understood." Gu Xiaoxue nodded. The liner set sail and returned to Jingmen Island late at night. The group didn't stay for long and directly returned to the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ. "Where are we, Tan Xiu?" With a curious look on her face, Cheng Yan'an looked at the interior of the Everlasting Feast Hall's manor in surprise. "Jingmen Island's Everlasting Feast Hall," answered Tan Xiu with a smile. "How long are we going to stay here?" Cheng Yan'an nodded and asked. "You told me to stay on Clam Island before, Yet you brought me here now. What exactly are you thinking? After my investigation, I found that there are some dangers on Clam Island, said Tan Xiu. For your safety, I must bring you back first. Don't worry. We'll go back, but before that, I need to do something. Alright. Qing Yannan nodded. Shortly after, Qing Yannan was arranged by the Everlasting Feast Hall's people to stay in the guest room next to Yang Li's. In the middle of the night, when Tan Xiu and Gu Xiaoxue watched Qing Yannan enter her room to rest, the door next door was opened. Yang Li poked his head out and saw Tan Xiu and Gu Xiaoxue. He immediately smiled and straightened his back, saying, "Brother Tan Xiu, you're back. If you didn't come back, I'm afraid I would have suffocated to death in this guest room. Since yesterday morning, that fellow surnamed Ouyang has practically been staying in the hall downstairs without leaving even a single step." "Ouyang Lei? How come we didn't see him when we came up?" asked Tan Xiu with a smile. "The Everlasting Feast Hall has too many rules." Yang Lu rolled his eyes and said, "You can't casually walk out of the guest room at night. Otherwise, do you think that Brad is willing to leave? However, I heard that the Ouyang family made quite a big move yesterday. It seems that many of their businesses have been closed." "Pa, what did you do?" asked Tan Xiu. "How could you make the Ouyang family make such a big move?" Yang Lu strode forward and grabbed Tan Xiu's arm, pulling Tan Xiu to his room. Gu Xiaoxue also followed him inside with curiosity. Yang Lu picked up the account books from the bookcase and showed them to Tan Xiu. Then, he said with a smile, "Brother Tan Xiu, it was you who told me to mess with Ouyang Lei, so I found his address and took some things from him. These account books record most of the Ouyang family's shady businesses. Even if I don't know much about some of them, I can guarantee that the Ouyang family will be in big trouble if I leak out the contents of these account books." Tan Xiu grabbed the account books and flipped through them for more than 10 minutes with a strange expression on his face. He finally understood why Ouyang Lei would stay here. The contents recorded in these account books were too troublesome. "My purpose has been achieved and I've messed with him. Don't let him sleep. I'll give him a call and tell him to come and get the account books." After saying that, Tan Xiu took out his mobile and dialed Ouyang Lei's cell number. At this moment, Ouyang Lei, who was squatting in a guest room of the Everlasting Feast Hall and smoking, was startled by the sudden ringtone of his mobile phone. He strode to the cabinet and grabbed the phone. He looked at the caller ID and nearly cried out. With trembling fingers, he pressed the answer button and called out in a trembling voice, "Sis? No. Tan Xiu. Brother Tan Xiu, Big Brother Tan Xiu. You finally called me back." A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he said, "Oh, Big Brother Ouyang called me brother-in-law? No, it's your future brother-in-law, right?" With a sullen face, Ouyang Lei said, "No, I won't call you that even if you beat me to death. Brother Tan Xiu, Big Brother Tan Xiu, tell me, is my thing in your hands?" "Yeah, it's in my hands," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "You want it? Then wait for me in the lobby on the first floor. I'll go down later." "It's really in your hands? That's great. I'll be there right away." Ouyang Lei hung up the phone with an ecstatic look on his face. He couldn't care less about the fact that Tan Xiu had stolen his account books. As long as he could get those account books back, he wouldn't refuse even if he had to kowtow 8 times to the north. A few minutes later, Tan Xiu and Yang Lu appeared in the lobby on the first floor with a faint smile on their faces. Looking at Ouyang Lei's red eyes, messy hair, and untidy clothes, Tan Xiu threw the account books to him and said with a smile, "How is it? How do you feel these 2 days?" Ouyang Lei took the account books and didn't have the time to answer Tan Xiu. He quickly flipped through the records and found that there were no mistakes. Only then did his heart, which was hanging in midair, finally calm down. Thank you, Brother Tan Xiu." Chapter 540. Yang Lu looked at Ouyang Lei with a strange expression and incredulously said, "Hey, Ouyang Lei, is there something wrong with your brain? Tan Xiu asked me to steal it, and now you're thanking him? What kind of logic is this? Logically speaking, shouldn't you take off your shoes and give him a good beating?" Ouyang Lei's grateful expression froze as he stared blankly at Tan Xiu and Yang Lu. At this moment he seemed to wake up from a dream. That's right. Why did I thank them? It's all thanks to them that I almost collapsed these past 2 days. For a moment, the gratitude inside Ouyang Lei's heart turned into nothingness. He wanted to get angry, but he didn't dare to do so. Not to mention Tang Xiu in front of him, just this guy named Yang Lu was too powerful. This guy was practically on par with the world's top thieves. Yang Lu looked at Ouyang Lei's changing expression and grinned. Let me introduce myself. I'm Yang Lu, a disciple of the Steel Sect. There's at least a 1% chance that I'm the mastermind behind all the major thefts in the world. The Steel Sect? Ouyang Lei's expression greatly changed and a vigilant look appeared in his eyes. If he was an ordinary family member, he might not know what the Steel Sect was, but because of his mother, he had heard many legends about the Steel Sect. Brother Yang. Ouyang Lei coughed and called out with an obsequious smile. As the saying goes, don't be afraid of a thief stealing, but be afraid of a thief remembering. Yang Lu didn't have any malicious intent, yet he had already made the Ouyang family flustered. If they were targeted by him because of something, it was likely that the Ouyang family wouldn't have a good future. Yang Lu grinned and said, Don't be so polite, Brother Ouyang. Your brother Tan Xiu's future brother-in-law, so we'll be on the same side in the future. Tan Xiu rolled his eyes and waved his hand, saying, Don't talk nonsense. Go rest early and do whatever you need to do tomorrow. I still have something to do, so I can't accompany you. After saying that, he returned to the second floor and took a shower in his room. He then changed into a set of pajamas sent by Gu Xiaoxue. Although it was already late at night, Tan Xiu still took out his mobile and dialed the old man's cell number. After a while, the call was connected, and the old man's voice came from the phone. Xiu, why are you calling so late at night? Is there something urgent? Tan Xiu said, Grandpa, there is indeed something urgent. Tang Guoxing said, Tell me, what is it? Auntie should have told you that the Yao family is going to rent the Clam Island in the South China Sea, said Tan Xiu. I've received accurate information that the Yao family's purpose in renting Clam Island is to unite with the major families that are on good terms with them and prepare to cultivate armed forces. The person who was really in contact with the government was Yao Qingting. Yao Xinhua was just a cover to deceive the public. The reason I'm looking for you so late at night is because I want Clam Island. Apart from Clam Island, I also want to rent another island a few kilometers away from Clam Island. Tang Guoxing asked in surprise, Why do you want to rent those 2 islands? Clam Island is suitable for planting medicinal herbs, while the other island is suitable for breeding fierce beasts, said Tan Xiu. If I can take down these 2 islands, in 10 years at most, I can make the Tang clan 100 times stronger than it is now. Are you sure? Tang Guoxing's tone turned particularly serious. I give you my word, said Tan Xiu with all seriousness. Tang Guoxing was silent for 2 minutes before he finally said in a deep voice, I see. Wait for my news. Wait. Sensing that Tang Guoxing was about to hang up the phone, Tan Xiu hurriedly said, Grandpa, there's something important I need to tell you. It may be helpful for our Tang family to take down Clam Island and the other island. What is it? Asked Tang Guoxing. I just returned to Jingmen Island from Clam Island, said Tan Xiu. I met some people of the Yao family on Clam Island, and I killed some of them. Yao Qingting and some others died on Clam Island. The documents and procedures brought by Yao Qingting are now in my hands. Do you want me to send them to you? Tang Guoxing was overjoyed. That's great. Send someone to send them immediately. That's right. Can you guarantee the safety on the road? No problem, said Tan Xiu. Since there's no problem, I'll wait for those documents in the imperial capital, said Tang Guoxing with all seriousness. Once I get them, I'll be able to operate better according to the conditions set by the Yao family and the government. After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiu called Gao Feng and ordered him to bring several experts to the imperial capital overnight to deliver the documents to the Tang family's ancestral residence. He also urged him to personally hand it over to Tang Guoxing. Early morning the next day, Jingmen Island's first public hospital. Yao Xinhua, who had been in a coma for 2 days, finally woke up. He was not cured by the doctors of Jingmen Island's first public hospital, but naturally woke up. When the white wall came into view, The pungent smell of soda drilled into his nose. After taking saline for 2 days, he supported his arms and sat up with difficulty. "Where am I?" Yao Xinhua looked at his sleepy subordinate next to the bed and asked. The middle-aged man raised his head in a daze. When he found that Yao Xinhua had woken up, he suddenly quivered and jumped up from the chair. With a face full of ecstasy, he asked, "Young master, you're finally awake? I'll call the doctor. Please wait for a moment." Yao Xinhua frowned and stopped him, asking in a deep voice, "You haven't told me where this place is? What happened to me?" The middle-aged man forced a smile and said, "Young master, you inexplicably fell into a coma at the charity party held by the Ouyang family. No matter how we called you, we couldn't wake you up. The most important thing is that after we sent you to the hospital, no matter how the hospital examined you or how the doctors diagnosed you, they couldn't figure out the reason behind your coma. That's right, this is Jingmen Island's first public hospital. You've been staying here for 2 days. Yao Xinhua frowned and said, "You mean I suddenly fell into a coma? At the charity party that night?" The middle-aged man nodded affirmatively. A look of recollection appeared in Yao Xinhua's eyes as he recalled the scene before he fell into a coma. Suddenly, his complexion changed and he asked in a deep voice, "What about Tan Xiu? Where was Tan Xiu after I fell into a coma that night?" The middle-aged man was confused and said, "You mean Tan Xiu of the Tang family?" "Yes, it's him," said Yao Xinhua in a deep voice. "Before my memory finally faded, I was with him. Where was he at that time?" The middle-aged man forced a smile and said, "Young master, he had already disappeared when we found you unconscious that night. However, something happened to our men that night." "What happened?" asked Yao Xinhua. The middle-aged man said, "Didn't you transfer 2 squads to the Sheraton Hotel to set up an ambush? Each squad had a total of 2 snipers, and all of them were lying in ambush in the opposite building. As a result, after you fell unconscious and were sent to the hospital, I personally issued the order to evacuate the 2 squads. Who would have thought that the 2 snipers would be killed? The most unbelievable thing is that their glabella was pierced with a silver needle. It was just a silver needle, but it pierced the most important brain nerve and directly killed them." Hiss! Yao Xinhua couldn't help but gasp after hearing it. He still clearly remembered the conversation between him and Tan Xiu. It was about who could leave the Sheraton Hotel standing and who could go out horizontally. There was no doubt that Tan Xiu was the one who attacked him at that time, and he was also the one who lost and had to be carried out. Why didn't he directly kill me at that time? With his terrifying ability, even if he killed me directly, I'm afraid that no one would notice it. In addition, using silver needles to kill 2 snipers who had been lying in ambush a long time ago, this killer was definitely extremely terrifying. Was it Tan Xiu? Or Tan Xiu's men? Yao Xinhua kept thinking about it, but every problem that came to his mind made his hands and feet turn cold. He finally understood why he lost so miserably in the fight for the 2 southern provinces. It was because Tan Xiu's strength was too terrifying, and it was very likely that he controlled an extremely terrifying armed force. After a long time, Yao Xinhua looked at the middle-aged man and asked in a deep voice, "Has my second uncle come back?" The middle-aged man shook his head and said, "No, he hasn't. We called his satellite phone, only to find that no one answered it. Further, our people have also lost contact with the liner." Yao Xinhua's complexion drastically changed and hurriedly asked, "There's a special communication device on the liner. How could we lose contact with the people on the liner?" The middle-aged man forced a smile and said, "The communication device on the liner has been turned off, so we can't get in touch with them." Yao Xinhua was silent for a moment and then said, "I see. Let's go back to the imperial capital first and talk about other things later." The middle-aged man hesitated and cautiously said, "Young master, someone came this morning to press for a debt." "Pressing for a debt? What the hell are you talking about?" Yao Xinhua angrily shouted. "Who do we owe a debt to?" The middle-aged man whispered, "They said that they were sent by Tan Xiu. They said that there's a 1 billion gambling debt." 1 billion? Gambling debt? Yao Xinhua was stunned. He suddenly recalled the bet he made with Tan Xiu at the charity party. Suddenly, he felt aggrieved and uncomfortable inside. Although he didn't know what Tan Xiu had done to him, the final result was that he was carried out, whereas Tan Xiu left by himself. What should I do? Am I really going to lose 1 billion renminbi to that surname Tang? Yao Xinhua clenched his fists. Humiliation flashed in his eyes as he said in a deep voice, "Let's talk about it when we get back. I think it's better not to wait until we get back. If you're willing to bet, you must be willing to accept your loss. This is the rule of the gambling world. Since young Master Yao has lost to me, you won't renege on your debt for a mere 1 billion, right?" A joking voice came from outside the ward. As the voice faded away, Tan Xiu, along with 2 stalwart men, strode into the ward. A faint smile hung on his handsome face as he looked at Yao Xinhua, who had just come down from the sickbed. There will be 4 chapters today. Seeking monthly votes for support. Chapter 541. Yao Xinhua's complexion drastically changed. He instantly retreated as his cold and gloomy eyes fell on Tang Xiu. What happened at the charity gala made his vigilance toward Tan Xiu reach the extreme. "Are you here to make trouble?" asked Yao Xinhua in a deep voice. "Didn't you hear it clearly?" Tan Xiu waved his hand and smilingly said, "Fine, I'll repeat it again since you didn't hear it clearly. You haven't forgotten our bet, have you? You've already lost. You were carried out of the Sheraton Hotel. So, according to our bet, you should pay me 1 billion renminbi. My purpose in coming here is actually very simple. First, I want to see if you've woken up, and second, I want money. Don't tell me that the dignified young master of the Yao family can't even take out 1 billion renminbi?" Yao Xinhua stared fixedly at Tan Xiu. After a dozen seconds, the anger on his face suddenly vanished and a bright smile appeared on his handsome face. He pushed away the stalwart man, rubbed his hands and smilingly said, "You're right, Tan Xiu. I'm willing to accept my loss. Give me your account number and I'll send someone to transfer the money to your account later." Touching his chin, Tan Xiu suddenly grinned and said, "Young Master Yao is really a forthright person. Had it not been for our identities, perhaps we could have become good friends. How about this? Although it's our second meeting, we still appreciate each other. It's not easy for us to meet each other, so I'll stay here and chat with you while I'm at it. When the money arrives, I'll go out and book a table to welcome you and celebrate your awakening." "Young Master Tang, are you afraid that I'll go back on my words?" Yao Xinhua smiled and said, "All right then, since you want to welcome me, then I won't be polite." After saying that, he gave 2 instructions to the middle-aged man beside him. After getting Tang Xiu's account number, the middle-aged man hesitated for a moment before he walked out of the ward. Sitting on the chair, Tan Xiu pointed at the bed and smiled. "You've been unconscious for 2 days, so your body must be stiff. Young Master Yao, you should rest on the bed. By the way, where are the 2 foreign experts beside you? Shouldn't they be accompanying you on your expeditions and helping you conquer the empire?" A glint flashed in Yao Xinhua's eyes. He didn't show it on the surface, but he was more vigilant in his heart. He didn't expect that Tan Xiu would know about the existence of Ai Murue and Topherson. "Young Master Tang seems to know a lot about me. On the other hand, I know very little about young Master Tang's identity. Looks like we have to get closer someday and get to know each other better." Tan Xiu laughed involuntarily and said, "Why is young Master Yao so modest? I believe that you've already turned over my background, right?" "Oh, right after hearing what you said, I thought of something. I heard that young Master Yao had been abroad for a few years. You should have met Yao Qinglong often, right? 4th uncle?" Yao Xinhua's heart skipped a beat. He didn't understand why Tan Xiu suddenly mentioned his 4th uncle, Yao Qinglong. However, he still shook his head with a faint smile and said, "Young Master Tang, you must be joking. My 4th uncle is usually only responsible for the family business. I rarely manage the family business, so I almost never see him." "That's not right." Tan Xiu shook his head. "I think you should meet him often. Yao Qinglong is the chief disciple of the thief sect. Although he usually doesn't show his talent, he must have a big family business abroad. I heard a friend of mine mentioning him a few days ago, and he highly praised him." Yao Xinhua's expression finally changed. The smile on his face receded like a tide. He looked at Tan Xiu with vigilance and said, "How did you know that my fourth uncle is the chief disciple of the thief sect?" "I really guessed it right, didn't I?" Tan Xiu pretended to be curious. "I really admire my IQ. I heard that the chief disciple of the thief sect is called Yao Qinglong. I suddenly remembered that someone in your Yao family also has this name, so I just casually mentioned it. I didn't expect that it would really match." Yao Xinhua's expression instantly turned extremely ugly. He stared at Tan Xiu and angrily said, "Are you trying to trick me?" No. I've always heard that young Master Yao is very resourceful and resourceful. How could I have the idea to trick you?" Tan Xiu waved his hand and said with a smile, "I just casually asked. It's absolutely a casual question. About that, isn't the efficiency of your subordinates too low? We've been sitting here and talking for a long time. How come he hasn't finished his work yet? Young Master Yao, are you really so poor that you can't take out 1,000,000,000 RMB? You even want your men to scrape together the money? Yao Xinhua found that he, who had always been calm and cunning, suddenly felt that his IQ was not enough after facing Tan Xiu. "All right, enough with you and me," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "If you really can't take out 1,000,000,000 RMB, I'll give you a discount since I'm not an unreasonable person. What do you think? If you think it's still too much, I can also give you a 20% discount." "Young Master Tang is quite generous," Yao Xinhua sneered. "But no need. 1,000,000,000 renminbi is just a small amount of money in my eyes. Besides, I'm not like some people who got this money from their families. Of course, each bill is stained with blood. I don't know if others will end up like the original owners of those bills if they use my money." "Awesome." Tan Xiu gave a thumbs up and praised. "My money is given by my family. I don't have any ability. I don't even dare to kill a chicken. At most, I can occasionally knock some pigs and dogs unconscious." Yao Xinhua was furious. The reason why he appeared in the hospital was because he was knocked unconscious by Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu's words implied that he was a pig and a dog. Knock, knock, the ward's door was knocked. The middle-aged man who had left before returned and whispered in Yao Xinhua's ear. Yao Xinhua raised his head and looked at Tan Xiu, saying, "The money has been transferred to your account. May I know what young Master Tang wants to treat me to today?" "I just met a pig butcher," Tan Xiu said with a faint smile. "The day before yesterday, he said that he wants to put down his butcher knife and open a restaurant. I've already told him before I came and asked him to get us some pufferfish. We'll eat pufferfish meat today." "Pufferfish?" Yao Xinhua's heart trembled. He suddenly turned to look at the middle-aged man beside him and angrily shouted, "What did you just say? You want me to go back and deal with something? Young Master Tang wants to invite me to eat pufferfish meat. Didn't you hear it?" The middle-aged man stared blankly at first before he immediately understood Yao Xinhua's meaning. He quickly said, "Young Master, it's not that I want you to go back, but we really have something to do. How about you invite young Master Tang to eat pufferfish meat some other day? I remember that there was an old carpenter who used to sell coffins. He recently opened a restaurant and learned how to cook pufferfish for a few days." Yao Xinhua nodded with satisfaction and a smile appeared on his face. He then looked at Tan Xiu and said, "Young Master Tang, I'm afraid I really have to apologize to you today. I'll treat you some other day. I'll do it myself." Tan Xiu glanced at the middle-aged man with a smile. He got up and walked to his side. He gently patted his shoulder and said with a smile, "Not bad. You're a very loyal dog. Since young Master Yao has something to do today, then I won't force you. Goodbye." After saying that, Tan Xiu walked out of the ward along with the two big men. Just as he was about to reach the ward's door, he suddenly stopped, turned his head and said with a smile, "Young Master Yao, since your fourth uncle is the chief disciple of the thief sect, do remember to say hello to him on my behalf when you see him. As for the businesses in his hands, I'd like to have a good cooperation with him if there's an opportunity in the future." "Sure. I won't see you out," Yao Xinhua said with a fake smile. Following Tan Xiu's departure, Yao Xinhua's expression finally turned gloomy. After he fiercely punched the bed with his fist, his other hand took out his mobile and dialed the number of his family's elders. A few minutes later, after leaving Jingmen Island's first public hospital's entrance, Tan Xiao comfortably sat on the back seat of the car and asked, "What do you two think? Did I have the upper hand just now, or did that surnamed Yao guy have the upper hand?" The big man on the front seat turned his head and said with a smile, "Boss, your imposing manner is very strong. You've been suppressing that surnamed Yao guy, so of course you had the upper hand." "Imposing manner and whatnot is just an illusion," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "At least my purpose in coming here today has been achieved. Even if that Yao Xinhua is rich, I'm afraid it'll be enough for him to feel pain for a while. Also, I found something interesting today that will definitely let Yao Xinhua live for a while." "What interesting thing, boss?" The big man on the front seat was confused. "Haven't you noticed that Yao Xinhua is very afraid of me?" Tan Xiao asked with a smile. The big man stared blankly for a moment before he immediately nodded and said with a smile, "Indeed." His eyes were full of vigilance ever since he saw you. Furthermore, he always revealed an attitude as if he's facing a formidable enemy when confronting you. It's just that this subordinate doesn't get it. If he's an enemy, why not kill him directly? Why let him live for a while longer? We're bound to have a fierce battle with the Yao family in the future. Tan Xiao said with a smile. Although Yao Xinhua is very shrewd and can be regarded as one of the best in the younger generation, I've planted a seed of fear in his heart. In the future, it'll be very difficult for him to maintain a normal state of mind as long as he faces me. Do you think that this kind of enemy is easy to deal with? Or is it a new enemy that we don't know that is easy to deal with? The big man was silent for a moment before he slowly nodded and said, "I understand, boss." Tan Xiao let out a faint smile. He turned his head to look out the window and no longer spoke. Ring, ring, ring. The cell phone rang. Tan Xiao took out his mobile and looked at the caller ID. He found that it was Kong Xia calling. After he picked it up, he said with a smile, "Kong Xia, is there something you need from me?" "Boss, the YDL Mafia's second most powerful figure of the Tsuba clan wants to see you." Kong Xia's voice came from the phone, but her tone was particularly serious. Tan Xiao was silent for a moment before he asked, "Where is he?" "Star City," Kong Xia said. Chapter 542. After pondering for a moment, Tan Xiao nodded and said, "Since he wants to see me, then tell him to come to Jingmen Island. I'm now in Jingmen Island." "What are you doing in Jingmen Island, boss?" Kong Xia was surprised. "I told you before that I'm going to rent 2 islands in the South China Sea," said Tan Xiao. "I happened to encounter a special situation, so I came here to handle it." Kong Xia said, "I got it. Are you going back to Shanghai at the end of the month?" "More or less," said Tan Xiao. "Since you can go back to Shanghai at the end of the month, then I'll stay there and personally preside over the opening of the new store there," said Kong Xia with a smile. After talking for a while, Tan Xiao then hung up the phone. He had sent some people to investigate the Tsuba clan of YDL, and naturally, he had also investigated the information of the Tsuba clan's second-in-command, Druffet, who held great power in the Tsuba clan and had a very high status in YDL. Revenge? Tan Xiao didn't think so. If Druffet really wanted to retaliate, he would have directly dealt with the magnificent Tang Corporation. He wouldn't have contacted Kong Xia or even asked to see him through her. However, if it wasn't for revenge, then why did he want to see him? After thinking about it, Tan Xiao still couldn't figure it out, so he was too lazy to think about it. He was ready to deal with the situation as it came. At present, his focus was on the 2 islands. He didn't know how the Tang family operated and whether they could take the 2 islands. However, he had decided that if the Tang family couldn't take the 2 islands, he would directly use force. Although this was only a last resort, he must never let the Yao family get it. Time fleeted by. In the blink of an eye, 2 days had passed. In these 2 days, Tan Xiao's life was very leisurely. Aside from the necessary daily cultivation, he read books, drank tea, and accompanied the unconscious Gu Yan in the exquisite pagoda. "Grand Master, a guest has come to our everlasting feast hall." He said that he has an appointment with you. Gu Xiaoshue's figure appeared on the 7th floor of the exquisite pagoda and respectfully reported. Druffet is here, isn't he? Asked Tang Xiu lightly. Yes, it's him. Gu Xiaoshue nodded. Tan Xiu nodded in response. After leaving the exquisite pagoda with Gu Xiaoshue, he went straight to Druffet's private room in the everlasting feast hall. After showing his identity to the 4 foreign men at the door, he stepped into the room. However, when he entered, the first person he saw wasn't Druffet, but an unexpected acquaintance. Miss Ji, I didn't expect to meet you here. This time, Ji Shiyan followed Druffet to Jingmen Island because Druffet was a friend of her big boss. Her group and Druffet had a business cooperation relationship. After seeing Tan Xiu come in, she also revealed a surprised look. Obviously, she did not expect that the person Druffet wanted to see was actually Tan Xiu. Hello, Mr. Tang. Tan Xiu nodded slightly and looked at the tall Druffet. He then extended his hand and smilingly said, Welcome, friend from afar. I'm Tan Xiu, the magnificent Tang Corporation's boss. Druffet didn't extend his hand, but squinted his eyes to observe Tan Xiu a few times. Then, he coldly snorted and lightly said, Boss Tang is very powerful. You even made me come all the way from Star City to Jingmen Island to see you. Tan Xiu's face turned gloomy. He went straight to the chair inside and sat down. After crossing his legs, he lit a cigarette and took a few deep puffs. Then, he indifferently said, Haven't your people seen whether I'm powerful or not? What's wrong? Do you think those losses are not enough? Do you want to lose more people in our country? Druffet's expression changed. Tan Xiu's words were like exposing his scars, causing his expression to turn extremely unsightly. If it weren't for the fact that Huaxia was Tan Xiu's territory, he would have pulled out his pistol and fiercely shot Tan Xiu to vent his hatred. Mr. Tang, I want the magnificent Tang Corporation to give me an explanation, and I want you to give me an explanation. Because no one in the whole world can make my Tsubwa clan suffer losses and come out unscathed. Druffet directly threatened. Tan Xiu turned to look at Ji Shiyan and lightly said, Miss Ji, I'll give you face and not kill him now. But I hope you can take him away, else I can't guarantee that he can leave the everlasting feast hall. Druffet's expression changed, whereas Ji Shiyan looked panicked. Others might not know how powerful Tan Xiu was, but she was perfectly aware of it. She and Li Laoshan were personally rescued by Tan Xiu. Mr. Tang, I think you misunderstood. Mr. Druffet doesn't mean to make things difficult for you. Although I don't know what happened between you, I believe it's better to squash enmity than keep it alive. Mr. Druffet, Mr. Tang is my friend and once my savior. I'm afraid I won't be able to help you much if you still speak with such an attitude, said Ji Shiyan seriously. Druffet was silent for a long while. Then he nodded and looked at Tan Xiu, saying, Mr. Tang, I've sent some people to investigate the cause of the incident. It's indeed not directly related to your magnificent Tang Corporation. It's some special department of your country. Forget it. I won't pursue the responsibility since the previous incident has already happened. As a matter of fact, the reason I came to you this time is to talk about cooperation. I don't think there's a need for us to cooperate, said Tan Xiu indifferently. Mr. Tang, I think there's a need for us to cooperate. Druffet shook his head. Perhaps you don't know what I mean by cooperation. Tan Xiu spread out his hands and said, To be honest, I really don't know what kind of medicine you're selling in your gourd. Tell me, what kind of cooperation do you mean? I want to pay a high price to hire some people from you to help me with some trivial matters, said Druffet. If the result is what I want to see, I think you can get my friendship as well as good benefits. Just say it directly, asked Tan Xiu. As far as I know, the everlasting feast hall is your property, said Druffet with all seriousness. The everlasting feast hall has several very powerful people. Whether it's teamwork, sneak attacks, or assassinations, they're all top-notch experts. I can't wait any longer. I want to sit on the seat of the Tsubwa clan's patriarch. So, I think you should know what I want to say next, yes? Tan Xiu was silent for a moment and slowly said, The price. $1 billion plus a large gold mine in Africa, said Druffet. Then, can you tell me who you want to invite? Asked Tan Xiu. Black and white impermanence, in Shirsan, in Shirsi, meat grinder Gao Feng, and snow rabbit Mo, said Druffet in a deep voice. Of course, if you can send more experts, I'll increase the price by $100 million for each one. Of course, the premise is that their strength must be on par with the black and white impermanence. That's a big deal. Tan Xiu applauded. I think this business can be done. However, I still want to ask you something. How did you know that I'm the owner of the Everlasting Feast Hall? How did you know that the four of them are in the Everlasting Feast Hall? I have my own intelligence channels, said Druffet with squinted eyes. I also know the whereabouts of the four of them. I spent a lot of money to buy them. You should have heard of the Darkwind organization, right? It's the world's largest intelligence agency. The Darkwind organization? It was the first time Tan Xiu heard of this name. Nevertheless, he became vigilant toward this intelligence agency. After a moment of silence, he slowly said, $2 billion plus that gold mine in Africa. You can't bargain. The current patriarch of your Tsuba clan will disappear from this planet in 10 days at most. What if you can't do it? Asked Druffet in a deep voice. Since I dare to accept this deal, I'll definitely be able to do it, said Tan Xiu lightly. Mr. Druffet, you're looking for me to seek cooperation. I won't watch such a huge sum of money fail to enter my pocket in the end. Druffet thought for a few minutes before he slowly nodded and said, If so, then let's have a happy cooperation. I'll ask you one last question, said Tan Xiu calmly. There are many excellent assassins in the world, as well as many powerful mercenary organizations. Why did you come to me? And why did you go to the magnificent Tang Corporation instead of directly coming to the Everlasting Feast Hall? There's a ghost around me, said Druffet with a forced smile. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment before he immediately understood what he meant. Then he smilingly said, It seems that Mr. Druffet's situation in the Tsuba clan isn't as good as the outsiders think. Power is a very fascinating thing, but it's also a very dangerous thing, said Druffet helplessly. Tan Xiu nodded in agreement and smilingly said, I'll give you the information you should give me now. I believe that you must have made some preparations in advance since you want to invite someone. Druffet gave a thumbs up and praised Tan Xiu. Then he directly picked up the briefcase and handed it to Tan Xiu, saying, All the information about him is inside. If possible, I hope that aside from him, his several right-hand men can also disappear from this world. That gold mine was actually prepared because of them. Tan Xiu got up and lightly smiled. I understand. I still have other things to do, so I can't accompany you anymore. Mr. Druffet, you'll be a VIP of the Everlasting Feast Hall in the future, so please take care of me if there's a big deal. Your expenses here will be free of charge. Having said that, he directly left. After meeting Gu Xiaoxue at the beach, he lightly said, I've received a big deal, $2 billion and a gold mine. I'm going to let light and dark go out to play. Gu Xiaoxue lightly smiled and said, Grandmaster, their strength has recently advanced by leaps and bounds. Even I'm not their match, so I believe they can easily complete the task. Tan Xiu handed the briefcase to her and said, The target is the current patriarch of the Tsuba clan and several of his right-hand men. The specific information should be in this briefcase. I'll leave this matter to you to follow up. All right. Gu Xiaoxue nodded with a smile. Chapter 543. Secret matters must be dealt with in a secret way. Although Tan Xiu didn't have a high EQ, he had an extremely high wisdom. After handing over the matter to Gu Xiaoxue, he resumed his leisurely life from 2 days ago. Although Han Qingwu would look for him once in the morning and once in the morning to talk about some topics, they never talked about the memories in Han Qingwu's mind again. A few days passed by slowly. Compared to Tan Xiu's leisurely life, Yao Xinhua's days felt like years. It had been a week since he received any news from his fourth uncle, Yao Qingting. He sent someone to Clam Island, but the news he got was that there was no trace of his fourth uncle on Clam Island. It was as if Yao Qingting had disappeared into thin air. He suspected Tan Xiu, but the result of the investigation he sent was that Tan Xiao had always been in the everlasting feast hall and had never left. Furthermore, what gave him a headache was that he didn't know which celestial being he had provoked recently. All the things he carried with him, including his wallet, ID card, bank card, and other things, were all stolen. He didn't even know how the other party did it. It was just like, he didn't know how Tan Xiao made him faint at the charity gala. Yao Xinhua had conveyed all the matters here to his family, but the order he received was to continue staying in Jingmen Island and observe the situation. At the everlasting feast hall, a fragrant aroma wafted in the hall on the first floor. Ji Shiyan, dressed in casual clothes, quietly sat at the dining table in the corner and tasted the food. Although a few days had passed, she didn't leave because of Druffet's departure and stayed in the everlasting feast hall. Ji Shiyan now knew that Tan Xiao was the everlasting feast hall's big boss. Although it was somewhat unexpected, she still felt that if she could have a good relationship with Tan Xiao, it would be a lot of benefits for her in the future. In addition, she also had another idea. Recently, because her boss was charmed by a vixen, under the pillow talk of that vixen, her boss began to change his attitude towards her. This made her very depressed, and she even faintly had the idea of leaving the company and finding another way out. Therefore, when she was sent by her boss to Star City to receive Druffet, she had her eyes on the magnificent Tang Corporation, which was also Tan Xiao. What surprised and delighted her was that the person Druffet wanted to visit was called Tan Xiao. Moreover, he was even the owner of the magnificent Tang Corporation, Tan Xiao, a former acquaintance. Therefore, she stayed and prepared to find time to see Tan Xiao again. "Hello, your dishes are all here." The beautiful waitress placed the last dish on the table and bowed with a smile. Ji Shiyan nodded and suddenly said, "Can I trouble you? I want to see Tan Xiao. Can you help me?" "Sorry, I don't have the right to inform the boss," the waitress said with an apologetic expression. Ji Shiyan said, "If you don't have the authority, then let your leader do it. I'm a guest, so you should be able to meet the needs of the guests, right?" "I'll try." 10 minutes later, Tan Xiao walked into the restaurant's hall. After glancing around, he walked toward the corner of the hall. After taking a seat opposite Ji Shiyan, Tan Xiao waved to her and said with a smile, "I heard you're looking for me. Is there something you need?" "I do have something to discuss with you, Mr. Tang," said Ji Shiyan with a smile. "What is it?" asked Tan Xiao. "What do you think of my ability, Mr. Tang?" asked Ji Shiyan. Tan Xiao looked at her seriously and nodded with a smile. "Your ability should be good given your previous position and the things you've done." Ji Shiyan sat up straight and asked, "Will you hire me if I recommend myself to you? You want to jump ship?" Tan Xiao was surprised. "I do have such an idea, but I haven't found a job yet." Ji Shiyan nodded. Tan Xiao was silent for a moment and then asked, "I want to know the reason." Ji Shiyan said with a helpless expression, "Originally, I'm the confidant of my current boss, so I can be put in an important position in the company. But my boss has recently been captivated by a woman. And that woman and I have some personal grudges before. I'm sure you've heard the saying of pillow talk. To be honest, this kind of pillow talk is really powerful. I've been given the cold shoulder recently, and a lot of assignments have been given to me. I feel that if this continues, I won't need to resign as my current company will fire me." Tan Xiao suddenly understood and said with a smile, "I'll give you half a month. After you've dealt with the current company's affairs, go to Star City to find Kong Xia. I believe she'll arrange a suitable position for you." Ji Shiyan's eyes lit up and excitedly said, "The magnificent Tang Corporation's development prospects are the brightest I can see. I firmly believe that I've chosen the right path to enter the magnificent Tang Corporation. Thank you in advance, boss. I'll work hard in the future." Tan Xiao waved his hand and said, "Speaking of which, we've also experienced some things together, so there's no need to say any more polite words. Also, you're staying here because you want to talk to me about these things, right?" Ji Shiyan nodded and smilingly said, "Ji Shiyan, there are some words that you can listen to, and some words that you can't," said Tan Xiao. "You're a smart woman, so I'm sure you know what I mean." Ji Shiyan hesitated for a moment before a trace of understanding finally appeared inside her heart. She nodded and said, I seem to have accompanied Mr. Druffet to see you a few days ago, but I forgot what you talked about. Tan Xiao gave a thumbs up and praised, "You're really worth teaching. All right, since we've come across such a meal, I don't think you'll mind if we dine together, right?" "It's my honor," said Ji Shiyan with a smile. Originally, the meal should have ended in a pleasant atmosphere, but just as Tan Xiao ate a few mouthfuls, his mobile phone rang. When he took it out and saw the caller ID, he immediately felt a headache because the caller was Han Qingwu. "What's the matter, Teacher Han?" "Tan Xiao, help me." Han Qingwu's urgent cry came from the phone. Tan Xiao's complexion changed. He abruptly got up and asked in a deep voice, "Where are you? What happened?" "Seaside Road, Bimo Shopping Mall," said Han Qingwu hurriedly. Get lost. I'm being besieged." Tan Xiao gestured to Ji Shiyan and strode out of the hall to the parking lot. On the way, he encountered a patrol team and directly stopped the 8 of them. "Take me to the Bimo Shopping Mall on Seaside Road." The 8 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall answered in unison. At the Bimo Shopping Mall, Han Qingwu leaned against the wall as she looked at the dozens of young men in sportswear and crew cut in front of her. Her heart was filled with nervousness. At the front of the dozen young men, Huang Shiqing wore a disdainful expression as he coldly said, "Bitch, you broke my brother's arm. You must come with us today. Otherwise, my Huang family martial school's face will be thrown away." "I'm not going." Han Qingwu raised the handbag in her hand and angrily shouted. Although her strength and speed had become 10 times stronger than before, she didn't know any martial arts at all. She might be able to knock down anyone in front of her in a one-on-one fight, but she simply couldn't beat more than a dozen young men. "You're not going?" Huang Shiqing sneered. "It's not up to you." Han Qingwu angrily shouted, "It's your brother who molested other women and even touched me. That's why I hit him. Who knew that he would be so weak that his arm was directly broken? If you dare to act recklessly, I'm sure someone will come to clean you up soon." "Just because of the phone call you just made?" Huang Shiqing sneered. "What a joke. There are indeed some people in Jingmen Island that I, Huang Shiqing, can't afford to offend. But I don't put any random guy in my eyes. If you have the ability, call someone from the Ouyang family." "The Ouyang family?" Ouyang Lulu's face emerged inside Han Qingwu's mind, but she immediately expelled it. Ouyang Lulu was not a good girl. Although she was from Jingmen Island and also a member of the Ouyang family, she probably wouldn't help her. Maybe she would even stand on the side and take pleasure in her misfortune if she knew what had happened to her. "I warn you, the person I called is very powerful. A lot of powerful people don't dare to be arrogant in front of him. If you dare to provoke me, I'm sure he'll make you look good. If you don't believe me, we can wait for him to come." "Wait for him to come?" Huang Shiqing sneered. "I can't afford to waste my time. Take her back to the martial school. If I don't teach her a good lesson this time, I won't be able to swallow my anger." A young man rolled up his sleeves and grinned, "Big Brother Qing, this woman looks good. Leave her to me. I promise I'll make her obedient and apologize to you and Brother Yang." "Then I'll leave her to you," said Huang Shiqing indifferently. A look of excitement instantly appeared on the young man's face. He strode toward Han Qingwu and reached out to grab her shoulder. "Fuck off." Han Qingwu waved the handbag in her hand. Her right leg quickly kicked the young man's face and sent him flying. Bam! The young man's body fell to the ground 5 or 6 meters away as he directly fainted. What? The remaining people looked dull. They didn't expect that the seemingly frail Han Qingwu was able to knock out their companion with just a kick. They previously thought that Han Qingwu could break Huang Shiyan's arm because of his bad luck and that he might have fallen. But now, it seemed that this woman was very powerful. Huang Shiqing squinted his eyes. The speed of Han Qingwu's kick was a bit faster than his fastest speed, which made him secretly vigilant. However, after seeing Han Qingwu's panicked expression, he sneered and said in a deep voice, "Xiao Dao, capture this bitch for me." "Got it." A stocky youth called Xiao Dao strode toward Han Qingwu and fiercely whipped his leg on Han Qingwu's shoulder, directly knocking Han Qingwu to the ground. Today's 4th chapter is over. I'm looking for all kinds of support. Chapter 544. At this time, Huang Shiqing realized that although the woman before him was very fast and powerful, she obviously didn't know any martial arts moves. She wasn't even good at fighting. Such a discovery made his tense heart instantly calm down, and a mocking expression appeared in his eyes. Pa! Huang Shiqing grabbed Han Qingwu and slapped her face. As 5 bright red fingerprints appeared on Han Qingwu's face, Huang Shiqing casually threw her to Xiao Dao and sneered, "Take her back to the martial school and tell her to call me on the way. I want to see who in Jingmen Island can save her." "Alrighty." Xiao Dao let out a grim smile and grabbed Han Qingwu's arm, escorting her into a car. As the few cars quickly left, Han Qingwu called Tang Xiu on the way with fear filling her heart. At the Hero's Crest Martial School. The western suburbs of Jingmen Island didn't reveal much, but it had a martial arts master overseeing it. The schoolmaster didn't care about worldly affairs all year round, and the entire operation of the martial school was completely controlled by the deputy schoolmaster, Jiang Mentian. Jiang Mentian was a martial arts grandmaster whose strength had reached the pinnacle. Even if more than a dozen martial arts masters besieged him, it would be very difficult for them to get close to him. Relying on his martial arts, he had once laid a foundation in Jingmen Island with his bare hands. Later on, no one knew that he inexplicably became the deputy schoolmaster of the Hero's Crest Martial School and stayed there for nearly 20 years. In recent years, Jiang Mentian stayed in the martial school almost every day. Apart from practicing martial arts, he also grew flowers and grasses. His days were particularly comfortable. Despite that, his strength still made the big shots of Jingmen Island respect him very much. They often came to visit him, drink a few cups, and exchange sentiments. Of course, part of the reason was that he had inextricable connections with several families who ran underground businesses in Jingmen Island. In front of the garden in the courtyard, Jiang Mentian was focused on trimming the flowers and plants, while 2 strong men stood at the gate of the courtyard like door gods. "Master Jiang." A lean youth strode into the courtyard and quickly came to Jiang Mentian's side. Jiang Mentian frowned and said with a displeased expression, "Xiaohu, did you forget the rules I set? Unless it's urgent, you're not allowed to disturb me when I'm trimming the plants." The lean youth forced a smile and said, "Master Jiang, I originally didn't want to disturb you. However, Huang Shiqing and his men came back with a woman. They've already set up a formation in the training field, as if they're waiting for someone important to come." Jiang Mentian raised his brows and lightly said, "You mean Huang Shiqing? That arrogant guy, who once threatened to change the name of our Hero's Crest Dojo to their Huang family's Huang Dojo. Did he cause trouble outside?" "Master Jiang, it's Huang Shiyang, Huang Shiqing's younger brother. His arm was broken. By the way, the one who broke Huang Shiyang's arm was the woman they brought back." Jiang Mentian shook his head and sighed. "Those Huang brothers are getting more and more outrageous in recent years. Originally I saw that he was a promising talent, that's why I taught him some real skills. Moreover, we handed over some of our dojo's external businesses to him. I didn't expect him to become so arrogant and despotic. Looks like I've become lazy these past few years and didn't discipline him properly." "What should we do now, Master Jiang?" asked the lean youth quickly. "Since Huang Shiqing brought him back to our dojo, it means that he's going to use our dojo's name to fight with others. Though we know that this matter has nothing to do with us, others won't believe it." Jiang Mentian was silent for a moment and then said, "Wait for me. I'll trim this potted plant first, and then I'll go teach that brat a lesson." "Alright." A glint flashed in the lean youth's eyes. He immediately retreated a few steps and bowed his head, waiting quietly. The Hero's Crest Dojo occupied a large area, and the training field in the front courtyard was as big as a regular football field. At the moment, Han Qingwu was tied to a pillar and her mouth was stuffed with something. Huang Shiqing, however, was sitting on a chair 10 meters away in front of her, quietly sipping tea. Behind him, there were more than a dozen young men with strong physiques and insolent expressions. They crossed their arms and looked at Han Qingwu maliciously. Several tens of meters away from them, dozens of instructors and students of the Heroes Crest Dojo looked at them curiously, yet none of them came over to ask anything. They looked at Huang Shiqing's arrogant appearance with dread on their faces. Less than 10 minutes later, 4 black SUVs rushed into the gate of the Heroes Crest Dojo. The old man guarding the gate post shouted as the 4 cars rushed inside and stopped in front of a row of 2-story buildings. 2 burly men got off the SUVs and strode to the front of a student of the dojo. They beat him down without any words and brought him to the window of the car where Tan Xiu was. As the window was slowly opened, Tan Xiu glanced at the student who was caught and lightly asked, "Did your Heroes Crest Dojo catch a woman?" The student's face turned red. He raised his head and glared at Tan Xiu, shouting, "That's right. It was Huang Shiqing from our dojo who brought some people to catch her. Or you dare to cause trouble in our Heroes Crest Dojo? Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to come back alive? Oh, it seems I've come to a den of thieves. Tell me, where are Huang Shiqing and the woman who was caught?" Tan Xiu sighed and asked with a cold face. "Martial arts field on the left." The student shouted. The 2 burly men released the student and returned to their cars. The 4 SUVs then rushed directly to the martial arts field. A minute later, the 4 SUVs had rushed into the martial arts field. Tan Xiu, who was sitting in the car, could clearly see Han Qingwu tied up on the martial arts field, as well as Huang Shiqing who was sitting on a chair and drinking tea. At this moment, Huang Shiqing had just picked up his teacup when he saw the 4 black SUVs rushing in. His complexion slightly changed. When the 4 cars stopped about 20 meters away from them, 8 men in black suits with extremely cold looks got out of the cars. His eyes finally fell on Tan Xiu, who just got out of the car. Driving 4 cars with such a small number of people is quite ostentatious. Huang Shiqing put down his teacup and looked at Tan Xiu with disdain. He then casually lowered his head and played with the nails of his right hand with his left hand. Tan Xiu looked at the scene in front of him and secretly sighed. He didn't expect that Han Qingwu would get into such trouble when she came out to play. And it seemed that the trouble this time was not small. However, he didn't blame Han Qingwu because he knew very well that Han Qingwu wouldn't take the initiative to provoke others. He walked to the front of Han Qingwu and saw the tears in her eyes gushing out and sliding down her face. Tan Xiu gently untied the rope for her and took the thing stuffed in her mouth, saying, "Did you get beaten? Does it hurt?" "Woo." The moment Han Qingwu was completely untied, she directly threw herself into Tan Xiu's embrace. The feeling of being wronged made her cry like rain and pear blossoms. She tightly hugged Tan Xiu with both hands as if Tan Xiu's embrace was the safest place for her. Io io. A hero saving a damsel in distress, and a beauty throwing herself at him. What a touching scene. Dao, who was standing behind Huang Shiqing, whistled and laughed loudly. Tan Xiu didn't push her away directly and let her hug him for a while. Then, he patted her back and gently pushed her away. He then looked at Huang Shiqing, who was sitting on the chair and didn't stop him at all. "Do you mind if I take her away now?" Tan Xiu's voice was very calm, but it was mixed with coldness. Huang Shiqing raised his head and the disdainful expression on his face turned more intense. He crossed his legs and took out a cigarette from his pocket, lit it up and took a puff before sneering. "Do you think my Huang Martial Arts School is a place where you can come and go as you please?" "Huang Martial Arts School?" Tan Xiu raised his brows and lightly said, "If I'm not mistaken, this should be the Heroes Crest Martial Arts School, right? How did it become the Huang Martial Arts School?" "It may be called the Heroes Crest Martial Arts School now, but I'm highly regarded by the deputy schoolmaster. Won't I have the final say in this school when they retire in the future? Kid, you're still young, but you must have heard of our martial arts school's fame, right? I really didn't expect that you would have the guts to come here to save people. I really admire you." "Forget it, I don't want to waste my time on a nobody like you," said Tan Xiu. "I came here to save people, and I've already saved them, so it's time for me to leave now. If you dare to stop me, I can only tear down your martial arts school's signboard and destroy it." At this time, Jiang Mentian, along with more than a dozen instructors from the martial arts school, all of whom were experts he had personally trained, came to the crowd. He happened to hear Tan Xiu's words and was about to reprimand Huang Shiji, but his brows slightly furrowed and he coldly snorted, "What a big tone! Do you think you can tear down my Heroes Crest Martial Arts School's signboard?" Deputy Schoolmaster. Although Huang Shiqing was arrogant, he didn't dare to act rashly in front of Jiang Mentian. It must be said that the person he feared and dreaded the most in the entire martial arts school was Jiang Mentian. He quickly got up from his chair and respectfully gave the seat to Jiang Mentian. Jiang Mentian coldly glanced at him and sat straight on the chair. He then looked at Tan Xiu and said again, "I shouldn't have paid attention to the affairs of you youngsters. But since you've caused a ruckus in the martial arts school, I have no choice but to come forward. Well, how do you want to solve this?" Huang Shiqing, who stood next to Jiang Mentian, fiercely shouted, "Deputy Schoolmaster, you can't spare that bitch. She broke my younger brother's arm, and I can't let this matter go." Jiang Mentian angrily cursed. Huang Shiqing's expression changed and he immediately shut his mouth in embarrassment. Tan Xiu shook his head and lightly said, "You must be the deputy schoolmaster, right? Your strength is not bad, and you can be regarded as one of the top martial artists. Since your people won't let me go, I don't want to leave now. I'll give you a chance to expel him and those people behind him from the martial arts school. I'll no longer pursue this matter with your martial arts school." "Else what?" Jiang Mentian sneered and asked. Chapter 545. Tan Xiu coldly said, "Otherwise, no one from your martial arts school will be able to walk out of here standing today." Clap, clap, clap. Jiang Mentian applauded and laughed heartily, but a contemptuous look flashed in his eyes. Dozens of instructors and students from the martial arts school surrounded them, totaling 50 to 60 people. Each and every one of them looked at Tan Xiu's group with disdainful eyes. "Is this guy stupid? Doesn't he know where we are? What an idiot! How dare he come to our martial arts school to be so arrogant and domineering? Does he want to die? It seems like 7 or 8 years ago, some brats came to our martial arts school to make trouble. Their legs were broken and they were thrown out like dead dogs. Later on, the whole families of those brats couldn't stay in Jingmen Island anymore and were forced to leave with their tails between their legs. What a moron! Does he think he can be arrogant here just because he brought 8 bodyguards? He really doesn't know how to write the word death." The instructors and students of the Heroes Crest Martial Arts School discussed among themselves. Many of them were even gearing up for a fight, waiting for Vice Schoolmaster Jiang Mentian's order to ruthlessly teach Tan Xiu's group a lesson. Han Qingwu pulled Tan Xiu's sleeve and said with a worried expression, "Let's leave first, Tan Xiu. This is a martial arts school, and they seem to be very powerful." Tan Xiu shook his head and looked at Jiang Mentian's disdainful expression. Then he lightly said, "I gave you a chance, but you don't want it. Then don't blame me for being ruthless. Do it, break everyone's legs." Each of the 8 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall possessed strength far beyond a martial arts grandmaster. Following Tan Xiu's order, the 8 people pounced toward the crowd like fierce tigers. They were fast and powerful, knocking down more than a dozen people from the Heroes Crest Martial Arts School just as they came into contact with them. Jiang Mentian didn't expect that the people brought by Tan Xiu would act so suddenly. What he didn't expect was that the strength displayed by these 8 people was extremely powerful. Even he would find it difficult to deal with them at the same time. "Stop!" Jiang Mentian let out a furious roar. However, the 8 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall had no intention of stopping since they only obeyed Tan Xiu's orders. Following the lightning-fast attacks and powerful attacks, the 8 of them spread out. They were surrounded and attacked, and they kept knocking down their enemies. Huang Shiqing stood beside Jiang Mentian, but he did not immediately make a move. His heart skipped a beat as he watched the 8 experts beat his senior and junior brothers to the ground in a completely one-sided manner. He also watched several instructors with profound martial arts foundations being knocked down. How could this be? How could these 8 people be so strong? Any one of them was probably stronger than him. One had to know that he was an expert who had achieved great success in martial arts. He was only half a step away from breaking through to the realm of martial arts grandmaster. Then he could be on par with the deputy dojo master, Jiang Menten. Could it be, were these 8 people all martial arts masters? For a moment, Huang Shiqing was horrified to realize that he seemed to have gotten himself into big trouble. Time passed in the complete torture. 2 minutes and 5 seconds later, apart from Jiang Mentian and Huang Shiqing, only the dozen people brought by Jiang Mentian were still standing. "Young man, tell your men to stop." Upon seeing the 8 experts of the everlasting feast hall gather again and rush toward them, Jiang Mentian immediately shouted in a deep voice. Tan Xiu raised his arm and sneered, "What? Do you regret it? Do you want to beg for mercy?" "Regret?" Jiang Mentian snorted. "Beg for mercy? Jiang Mentian, haven't heard anyone dare to talk to me like that for nearly 20 years. Young man, the people you brought are very powerful. I'm afraid I'm not much stronger than them. But are you sure you still want to continue?" "I'm very sure," answered Tan Xiu. "Think about it clearly. They are very powerful, but you should know the truth that 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. The number of people from my Hero's Crest Martial School here is only 1/10 of the entire martial school. If we call all of them, can your men knock down everyone even if they are good at fighting? Also, are you sure you and your woman can come out unscathed once they are besieged? Are you threatening me?" Tan Xiu burst into laughter and said, "I'm afraid of everything, but I'm not afraid of being threatened by others. Other than this guy, get rid of everyone else for me." The 8 experts of the everlasting feast hall moved again. This time, even though Huang Shiqing knew that he was not their match, he still braced himself and rushed out. However, a lightning-fast fist hit his face, while an iron pillar-like leg kicked his waist. He screamed as he was kicked 7 or 8 meters away and heavily crashed to the ground. Kacha, after knocking down more than a dozen people, the 8 big men followed Tan Xiu's order and broke their calf bones. Not only them, but the calf bones of those who had just been knocked down were also broken in a very short time. Enough. Seeing the actions of the 8 big men, Jiang Mentian suddenly got up from his chair. His eyes looked as though they could shoot fire as he stared straight at Tan Xiu and shouted. Tan Xiu flicked his wrist and lightly smiled. "I haven't fought for a long time. I actually want to practice, but you're too weak. You're not worth my time. Why don't you call the strongest one over?" Breath. Jiang Mentian coldly snorted and said, "Since today's matter is doomed to not end well, then all of you will stay here today. There's no need for the strongest one to come out. I can clean all of you up." Tan Xiu shook his head and sighed. Sometimes self-confidence is a good thing, but overestimating one's strength will result in very tragic consequences. Which one of you wants to teach him a lesson? If you win, I'll reward you with 50 cents. "I'll do it." A big man stepped forward and spoke in a deep voice. "Since you want to show off, then do it well." Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, "Remember, if you dare to lose my people, I'll throw you out to manage the business." "Understood." The big man's complexion changed and his expression suddenly turned solemn. He didn't want to be sent out to manage the business. Otherwise, he wouldn't have time to practice. At this time, the instructors and students of the Hero's Crest Martial School, who were rolling on the ground in pain, endured the pain and looked at Jiang Mentian and the big man. Many of them even roared, "Deputy Schoolmaster, avenge us and kill them all." "Those damn bastards. My legs are gone. Deputy Schoolmaster, you're a Grandmaster expert. You must make them pay 100 times the price. These damn bastards, my leg is finished. Deputy Master, you are a master, you must make them pay 100 times the price. Kill them. Let them know that our Hero's Crest Martial School is not to be trifled with. Kill them. Let them know that our Hero's Crest Martial School is not to be trifled with." They looked at Jiang Mentian with eyes full of eagerness and hatred when they looked at Tan Xiu and the 8 big men. Although they had rarely seen their deputy schoolmaster fight in recent years, they were well aware of his strength. Once a person at the Grandmaster level took action, he would definitely be able to clean up all the opponents. Jiang Mentian snorted coldly and rushed toward the strong man. His footsteps were extremely steady, and his speed was also very fast. After sprinting in front of the strong man, he did not hesitate to smash his fists into his opponent's face. The sturdy man snorted coldly and kicked his leg at an extremely fast speed. However, it was this kick that swept away Jiang Mention's arm and landed a kick on Jiang Mention's chest. Ravage. It was a completely one-sided ravage. Jiang Mentian couldn't see the difference in speed and strength before he was attacked. But when the big man went all out, he couldn't even block or dodge. The raindrop-like fists greeted Jiang Mentian again and again. The severe pain made it difficult for Jiang Mentian to breathe. How was this possible? Jiang Mention's eyes were full of pain and despair. He never dreamed that the big man didn't go all out. The strength he displayed now was his real level. But were they still human? He was already a martial arts grandmaster. There were only a few people in the whole country who could be stronger than him. These monsters, where did they come from? Were they the same kind of people as the schoolmaster? Bam! A kick directly hit Jiang Mention's face. As Jiang Mention's vision turned black, his body was whipped more than 10 meters away and smashed next to the iron pole where Han Qingwu had been tied up. Boss, the task is complete. Tan Xiao nodded with satisfaction and said, "Go back and get 2 essence-gathering pills. Everyone else will get 1 each. Consider it your reward." "Thank you, boss." The 8 big men cupped their fists in surprise. The instructors and students of the martial arts school, who were sitting on the ground, were dumbfounded as they looked at Jiang Mentian, who was lying like a dead dog under the iron pole. Their eyes were full of disbelief. How was this possible? The war god in their hearts, the deputy schoolmaster with the strength of a martial arts grandmaster, couldn't even fight back and was beaten down by others? This was unscientific. Could it be that the big man was more powerful than a grandmaster? For a time, fear hit their hearts like a tide, making them feel cold all over and their hands and feet cold. Tan Xiao slowly walked to Jiang Mention's side, grabbed his collar and lifted him up. Then he sneered and said, "Weren't you quite arrogant just now? Do you think you're invincible just because you've reached the Grandmaster realm? In my opinion, you're just a clown who takes care of trivial matters for others." After that, he directly threw Jiang Mennan, who was in pain all over his body, to the ground and said again, "Call the strongest one here. If he's really capable and can let me move my hands and feet, I can spare you this time and keep the name of your martial arts school." Cough, cough. Jiang Mentian spat out a mouthful of blood. With a pale face, he took out his mobile phone from his pocket, only to find that it had been broken by the attack and could no longer be used. Whoosh! A hazy figure came from a distance. Chapter 546. The figure's speed was so fast that the naked eye could hardly catch it. In just a few seconds, it had already sprinted over 200 meters and arrived in front of Tan Xiao. "No need to call me. Since little brother wants to see me, I'll naturally fulfill your wish," said a sage-like, long-haired, barefooted old man with a smile. He seemed to be indifferent to the 50 to 60 badly beaten martial arts school members on the ground. Tang Xiao glanced at him and brushed past him. He then walked to the chair where Jiang Mentian had just sat and sat down. He then crossed his legs and smilingly said, "I've never seen you before, but I've never seen you before. But since you're a kindred spirit, your strength must be good. How much of your power did you use to unleash your speed just now?" 20%. The barefooted old man still maintained his smile and slowly stretched out 2 fingers. "That's amazing." Tan Xiao applauded and smilingly said, "To be able to achieve this with only 20% of your speed, it seems that your cultivation is not low. But can you tell me how much of your speed could be maintained if the array covering the entire martial arts school wasn't activated?" The barefooted old man's expression finally changed. The smile on his face receded and his eyes flickered. He stared deeply at Tan Xiao and asked, "Who are you, little brother?" "Tan Xiao," replied Tan Xiao lightly. "I've never heard of you." The barefooted old man shook his head and said, "But you can see through the array I activated. That means you're very powerful, even more powerful than I expected. That person from Haiqing province came to me in the past, but he couldn't see through the mystery here." "Haiqing province?" Miao Wentong? "Do you know Miao Wentong?" asked Tan Xiu with a surprised expression. The barefooted old man nodded and said with a smile, "That kid's talent is good, and his fortuitous encounter is also good. His cultivation level is already considered as an outstanding genius. However, compared to you, he's probably overshadowed." "That's right, if my guess is correct. You're from the Everlasting Feast Hall, right?" "How did you see that?" asked Tan Xiu. The barefooted old man smilingly said, "Aside from the Everlasting Feast Hall, there's only that Amur tiger in China who can bring out 8 experts of such strength at once. However, the Amur tiger had been concealing its strength in the last few decades and rarely came out. It was even more unwilling to set foot on Jingmen Island. So I guess it can only be the Everlasting Feast Hall. After all, the Everlasting Feast Hall's headquarters is on Jingmen Island." Buzz. The roar of cars could be heard from afar. 2 Audis drove directly over and stopped in front of everyone. Tan Xiu had originally planned to ask the barefooted old man about the Manchurian tiger, but now that he was suddenly interrupted by someone, he immediately frowned. The car door opened. 4 burly men in suits quickly stood in front of the car, while a young man opened the rear door of the car behind and respectfully invited a middle-aged man out. "What's going on? Someone really dares to cause trouble at the Heroes Crest Dojo?" After Ouyang Wenjin got out of the car, he looked at the injured members of the Heroes Crest Martial Club on the ground and suddenly showed a shocked expression. Especially when he saw Jiang Mentian was also beaten miserably and sitting on the ground at this moment, his face was ashen. He was shocked to the point that it was difficult to be more shocked. He came here to visit Jiang Mentian, but he didn't expect to encounter such a scene. At this moment, Tan Xiu had already recognized Ouyang Wenjin's identity. He had seen Ouyang Wenjin at the charity party, but they had never talked face to face. The barefooted old man glanced at Ouyang Wenjin and no longer paid attention to him. Instead, he looked at Tan Xiu and continued, "Little brother, can you consider this old man's face and forget about today's matter?" Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "It's not easy for me to meet a kindred spirit, so it's natural for me to have a good spar. I've always heard that China is a great country with hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Now that I'm fortunate enough to meet one, it's really a pity to waste this opportunity." The barefooted old man shook his head and smilingly said, "If you can cultivate for a few more decades, perhaps this old man will be interested in exchanging pointers with you. But little brother is too young, so I think it's better to forget about it." Tan Xiu glanced at the barefooted old man and directly got up from the chair. He then cupped his fists toward Ouyang Wenjin and said, "What brings you here, Patriarch Ouyang?" Ouyang Wenjin felt that Tan Xiu looked familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen him. After hesitating for a moment, he smilingly said, "I actually came here to visit Deputy Headmaster Jiang. I didn't expect to encounter such a situation. Little brother is..." Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, "I don't think it's necessary to address me as little brother. If Ouyang Lulu and Ouyang Lei knew that they were a generation lower than them, I'm afraid they would keep nagging in my ear. I'm Tan Xiu, Patriarch Ouyang should have heard of me." "Tan Xiu?" Ouyang Wenjin looked surprised and immediately said, "You're Tan Xiu? You're really a man of striking appearance. It seems my daughter has a good eye." Cough, cough. Tan Xiu understood Ouyang Wenjin's meaning. He coughed twice and forced a smile. "Patriarch Ouyang, Lulu and I are actually good friends. I hope you don't misunderstand." Ouyang Wenjin waved his hand and smilingly said, "You youngsters should deal with your own matters. But why are you here?" Tan Xiu pointed to Han Qingwu and said, "These people from the Heroes Crest Martial School are too arrogant. They even kidnapped my teacher and brought her here in broad daylight. I came here to ask for her, but they actually wanted us to stay and said that we would pay a painful price. Hence, some unpleasantness arose." Upon hearing this, Ouyang Wenjin suddenly glanced at Jiang Mentian with a strange expression. The barefooted old man himself didn't know what exactly happened. His complexion sank upon hearing Tan Xiu's words. He then looked at Jiang Mentian, who was sitting paralyzed on the ground and unable to stand up. He coldly said, Jiang Menon, I handed over the martial school to you, but I didn't expect you to have such big guts. You even dare to kidnap a woman. It has nothing to do with me, master, Jiang Mentian bitterly said. It's all Huang Shiqing's doing. I only learned about it later. But when I came here, I heard this. This man said that he wanted to tear down our martial school signboard, so I— Who's Huang Shiqing? The barefooted old man shouted in a deep voice. In an instant, dozens of pairs of eyes looked at Huang Shiqing, who was sitting paralyzed on the ground with a pale complexion. The barefooted old man's eyes turned cold. He flicked his finger and an airflow instantly shot out, penetrating Huang Shiqing's glabella and directly killing him. Hiss! Most of the people in the surroundings had a drastic change in expression and couldn't help but gasp. They didn't expect that their master, who had always been indifferent to worldly affairs, would be so ruthless and merciless that he directly killed Huang Shiqing. Of course, what made them shudder the most was the terrifying ability of their master. He could kill someone with just a flick of his finger, and from a distance of more than 10 meters. This method was really terrifying. Upon seeing the barefooted old man's action, Tan Xiao secretly sighed inwardly. Although he didn't want to let this matter go, the barefooted old man had already decided to settle this matter peacefully. It would be inexcusable if he continued to be aggressive. After a moment of silence, he calmly said, "Since Huang Shiqing is dead, let's just forget about this matter. However, I can accompany you if you're willing to spar with me." Having said that, he fiercely stomped on the ground. Star force gushed out from the soles of his feet and drilled into the ground in an instant. Boom! A faint sound of thunder rang in everyone's ears. Strange. The sun is out, so where did the thunder come from? Everyone subconsciously looked up at the sky. The barefooted old man raised his head, and his expression instantly changed. He quickly took out a jade tablet from his bosom, but the jade tablet cracked under his gaze, eventually breaking into more than a dozen pieces. "You?" The barefooted old man suddenly looked up and his eyes were filled with disbelief as he stared at Tan Xiao. Tan Xiao lightly smiled and said, "There's a saying I believe you've heard before, you can't judge a book by its cover and you can't measure the sea with a pail. As a fellow practitioner, I hope you won't be fooled by my performance." Appearance? The barefooted old man's heart trembled. Suddenly he was enlightened. A problem that had troubled him for many years was instantly solved. "I've learned something." As the barefooted old man cupped his fists, a surging aura erupted from his body. Everyone present felt a strong pressure coming from the barefooted old man. The pressure made many people retreat, and even those who were paralyzed on the ground crawled to the distance with difficulty. Tan Xiao waved his hand and a wave of aura protected Han Qingwu and Ouyang Wenjin. His eyes were full of curiosity as he carefully sized up the barefooted old man. He didn't expect that because of his words, the barefooted old man actually had an epiphany in a certain aspect of his state of mind, causing his state of mind to improve by leaps and bounds. A few minutes later, the barefooted old man directly sat cross-legged and closed his eyes, immersing himself in cultivation. Tan Xiao sighed inwardly. It seemed that it was impossible for him to spar with the barefooted old man today. However, he was very satisfied. The higher the barefooted old man's cultivation, the more he could display his strength. "Family head Ouyang, I still have other matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first." Tan Xiao grabbed Han Qingwu's wrist and nodded to Ouyang Wenjin. Then he turned around and walked toward the 4 black SUVs. Ouyang Wenjin loudly said, "Tang Xiao, do you have time tomorrow? How about coming to my Ouyang family for a visit?" "All right," Tan Xiao replied. After he sat in the car, the 4 cars roared and left. After leaving the Heroes Crest Martial School, Tan Xiao turned his head and glanced at the back. He then lightly said, "If I remember correctly, that Huang Shiqing fellow has a younger brother with a broken arm. I don't want any trouble in the future. Do you know what to do?" "I'll handle it, boss." A strong man on the front seat respectfully replied. Han Qingwu's expression slightly changed. She hurriedly grabbed Tan Xiao's arm and said, "Tan Xiao, you want to kill Huang Shiqing? Who do you think Huang Shiqing will blame this debt on in the future now that Huang Shiqing is dead?" asked Tang Xiao lightly. "Huang Shiqing can capture you for his younger brother, so Huang Shiqing can seek revenge for his older brother. He will find a way to kill you in the future, and he will even blame it on me. Since you already know that there will be trouble in the future, why not cut the weeds and eliminate the roots now? Today's third chapter has ended. Seeking monthly votes for support. Chapter 547. At the First People's Hospital of Jingmen Island. There was only one bed in the VIP ward with a lot of potted plants in the corner. Aside from a TV, there was even a refrigerator. Huang Shiyang rested his head on a pillow with his arm in a cast and a bandage. The shame in his eyes was particularly thick. There was a young girl sitting at the bedside. Although she looked obedient on the surface, a look of disgust flashed in her eyes from time to time. Wenwen, call my brother and ask him if he's done with that bitch yet? The girl was silent for a moment. She silently picked up her mobile and was about to dial the number when the ward's door was violently pushed open. A youth with a crew cut rushed to the bed and called out with a panicked face, "Second brother, quickly pack up and run. Something big happened." Huang Shiyang's expression changed and he quickly asked, "What happened? Where's my brother?" "Big brother is dead. He was killed by the schoolmaster himself," said the youth with a crew cut urgently. "I suspect that the other party won't let this matter go and will deal with you. You can't stay in the hospital anymore. Quickly pack up and run away from Jingmen Island. The farther the better." Huang Shiyang abruptly sat up straight with disbelief on his face. He involuntarily exclaimed, "What the hell are you talking about? My brother, how could he die? How could the schoolmaster kill my brother himself?" "Second brother, you've provoked a terrifying person. It's because of you that our martial arts school has been destroyed by them," said the youth with the crew cut bitterly. All the 50 to 60 instructors and students in the school had their legs broken. Even the deputy schoolmaster was no exception. The schoolmaster suddenly appeared. Although this matter was settled, he killed Big Brother with his own hands. His purpose is very simple, to resolve the enmity between both sides. Huang Shiyang's eyes turned red as a crazy resentment burst out from his eyes. He gritted his teeth and shouted, "One, quickly help me pack up. Third brother, tell me who the other party is." "He's called Tan Xiu. He should be that woman's man," said the youth with a crew cut. "He's not old and looks like he's in his early 20s, but each of the 8 bodyguards he brought is very terrifying. Our deputy master is an expert at the supreme power level, but any one of the 8 bodyguards can beat him to a pulp without him being able to fight back. That's right, he seems to be someone from the everlasting feast hall." Huang Shiyang's heart trembled as fear filled his heart. He was well aware of the vice dojo master's strength. He was a martial Dao grandmaster who had presided over the Hero's Crest dojo for a decade or two and rarely had a worthy opponent. Everlasting Feast Hall, Tan Xiu. I'll remember it. The fear in Huang Shiyang's heart quickly disappeared and was replaced by a resentment. After getting out of bed, he immediately changed his clothes. Although his arm was in the way, he still put on his coat and quickly left the ward a few minutes later. Everlasting Feast Hall. Tang Dong was wearing a suit and a pair of black sunglasses. He was standing straight by the window of the box, quietly looking at the parking lot in the distance. On the table behind him, there was a folder. The contents of the folder were very important. The private room. There was a knock on the door of the private room, and Gu Xiaoxue, who was wearing a white dress, stepped into the room. "Tang School Tang. S Tang. S Tang 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 Tang. S Tang, Tang and Tang Xiu's master. I'll wait for him here since he still needs half an hour," Tang Dong said with a smile. "Gu Xiaoxue, our businesses are very similar. If possible, I hope we can cooperate in some aspects." "For example?" Gu Xiaoxue lightly smiled. "As far as I know, the Everlasting Feast Hall has many experts. Our seaside straight manner's main ingredient is fierce beast's flesh and blood. If it's possible, I can buy it from you." Gu Xiaoxue smiled. "Mr. Tang, about this issue, you can talk to our boss after you see him. I believe he will be able to satisfy you." "All right then. I'll have a good chat with him after we talk about serious matters." Tang Dong smiled. Imperial capital, Yao family. Yao Qingzuan's complexion was livid. He sat on the armchair without saying a word. Yao Qingqing, however, clenched his fists with blue veins throbbing on his forehead. The middle-aged man standing next to him, wearing glasses, lowered his head at the moment with a nervous expression on his face. Finally, Yao Qingzuan gritted his teeth and said, "Tang Guoxing has been enduring for a long time and deliberately let us trample on his face. I'm afraid he's plotting something big. I could clearly see the Tang family's veins before and was confident that I could pinch their lifeline. But now I understand that it's something the Tang family deliberately put on the surface." "Dad, what should we do next?" Yao Qingqing angrily said. "Clam Island and Resting Cemetery Island have been taken by the Tang family, so our family's plan will be put on hold. Furthermore, Qingting is now missing and we don't know if he's dead or alive. The information he brought with him is very important to our Yao family." Yao Qingzuan clenched his fists and said in a deep voice, "Since they have taken the two islands, we can only choose another place. We can't estimate the depth of the Tang family, so we need to avoid them for the time being. Order our Yao family and the families that have a good relationship with us not to have any conflict with the Tang family in the near future." "Dad, are we just going to let this matter go?" asked Yao Qingqing. "Of course not." Yao Qingzuan snorted coldly. "I invited the one from the northeast 2 days ago, and he should be coming to the imperial capital in a few days. As long as we have his help, let the lone one Tang family, even 10 Tangs won't be our Yao family's match." "You mean the Amur tiger?" asked Yao Qingqing in shock. Yao Qingzuan nodded and said, "I saved the Amur tiger's life in the past, so he owes our Yao family a huge favor. Originally, I didn't intend to use this favor to deal with the Tang family because I thought that we could easily destroy the Tang family by ourselves. But I didn't expect that the Tang family had hidden so deeply. It seems like we have no choice but to use this favor now." Yao Qingqing's expression moved and he quickly said, "Dad, should we spread the news about our Yao family inviting the Amur tiger to the other forces? With the deterrence of the Amur tiger, I'm afraid those centrist forces will also lean toward our Yao family. Let's not talk about it for the time being." Yao Qingzuan shook his head and said, "Wait until we get rid of the Tang family with the help of the Amur tiger's power. I'm afraid those centrist forces will lean toward our Yao family when the time comes if we can have a good relationship with him." Yao Qingqing thought for a moment before he nodded with a smile and said, "I understand, Dad. I really didn't expect that you still have such a trump card." The Tang family. Jingmen Island, Everlasting Feast Hall. After Tan Xiu came back, he brought Han Qingwu, who had been silent for a while, to his residence. Just as he was about to talk to her, a core member of the Everlasting Feast Hall rushed over and told him that Tang Dong was waiting for him. "Teacher Han, I have something to deal with. You take a good rest first, and we'll talk again during dinner." Han Qingwu was silent for a moment before she said, "Can you not call me Teacher Han later? My name is Han Qingwu, and people close to me call me Qingwu." Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows, but he still nodded and said, "I understand." 5 or 6 minutes later, Tan Xiu came to Tang Dong's private box. Looking at Tang Dong, who got up to greet him, Tan Xiu said with a smile, "Uncle Dong, is there any news from the imperial capital?" "Nothing can be hidden from you," said Tang Dong with a smile. "That's right, our Tang family has obtained Clam Island and Resting Cemetery Island, and the official documents have been approved. All the documents are here, and First Uncle has ordered that you can do whatever you want on these 2 islands later." "What's the reaction from the Yao family?" asked Tan Xiu. "What else can they do?" Tang Dong said with a smile. "Our Tang family moved very fast. All the joints have been opened and the approval documents have been obtained. Even if the Yao family has tried their best, there is no way to reverse the situation. I reckon that the old man of the Yao family is now stamping with rage." A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he nodded and said, "The head of the Yao family will definitely be very angry since we have intercepted them. However, I reckon that the Yao family will also start to re-examine our Tang family. At this time, what the Tang family must do is to restrain themselves, and at the same time, we must also take precautions to prevent the Yao family from being unable to swallow this and act against us again." Tang Dong firmly engraved Tan Xiu's words in his heart. He nodded and said, I understand, and I believe first uncle will also understand. I will also tell my father what you said, and let the elders discuss it properly. Then let's not talk about this topic anymore, said Tan Xiao. I also want to change the topic. Tang Dong said with a smile. The Everlasting Feast Hall has a lot of experts. Do you want to find time to hunt in the sea? To tell you the truth, our seaside straight manor is in short supply of fierce beast meat. The supply simply cannot meet the demand. In order to make more money, you see, Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment before he couldn't help laughing and said, Don't worry about it. I guarantee that the seaside straight manor's supply of fierce beast meat will be fully satisfied after some time. As a matter of fact, I've been scheming to get those 2 islands, and one of my plans is to rear fierce beasts on one of the islands. Tang Dong was dumbfounded. Fierce beasts could also be reared in captivity? Don't be shocked, Uncle Dong. Tan Xiao said with a smile. As long as you're strong enough, even fierce beasts can be reared in captivity. I'll personally accompany you to visit the place after the scale has been set up. Tang Dong gulped down his saliva and said with a shocked face, Tan Xiao, this move of yours is simply too crazy. Of course, it would be great if you can really rear fierce beasts. Uncle Dong, those people sent by the Seaside Straight Manor are now undergoing training. I'm sure it won't take long for their strength to advance by leaps and bounds. I think the most important task for you now is to select your trusted aides and train their talents. The Yao family wants to expand the scale of their armed forces, so our Tang family can't fall behind. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.